Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our February 2nd, 2021 City Council meeting. It is 7:00 p.m. Meeting is now in session. Tonight's invocation will be led by Pastor Samuel Martinez from Amazing Love Ministries, and Councilwoman Diaz, welcome back, will be leading the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise.
Thank you, Mayor. Heavenly Father, in the name of Jesus, as we gather here this evening, so many things to pray about, Father. And perhaps we can start, first of all, with those police officers, Father, those agents, federal agents, Father, FBI agents that were murdered. We ask that you comfort their families, comfort their fellow agents, Father. We pray for wisdom and insight to be given unto our mayor, city council, and the affairs of our city. Father, your will be done in this meeting. Father, we pray for all the parents in our city, Father, especially those that have school-aged children that are now online. Give them wisdom. Prosper our businesses, Heavenly Father. Father, I pray the protection of your angels over our city, keeping it safe from this virus. And if there be any in our city, Father, that are under the attack of this virus, we pray for their healing. If any family member has suffered a death, we pray, Father, for their comfort. Father, we ask for the protection of your angels over our police officers and our first responders, our medical personnel in our hospitals, Father, that you strengthen them, that you keep them safe. All of the individuals in nursing homes, Father, we pray for them, Father, to be well and continue to get better and better in Jesus' name. Father, we pray that you stretch out your hand against this virus in our city, in our country, and around the world. And we believe, Father, for a quick end to this virus. Now, Father, thank you once again for giving wisdom to all those in our city as we conduct the affairs of our city. God bless America. God bless our city. Thank you, Father, in Jesus' name. Amen.
Have a seat. So I just would like to welcome back Councilwoman Diaz in her recovery. So welcome. Roll call, please.
Good evening. Councilmember Tabatabai?
Present.
Councilman Wu?
Yep.
Councilwoman Diaz?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Castellanos?
Here.
Mayor Lopez Viado?
Present. City Attorney, is there anything to be reported out of closed session?
Nothing, Madam Mayor.
Okay, so we will begin to our presentation. Well, first I'd like to mention Mr. Martinez. He is a resident and a Good Samaritan of West Covina. He provides mobile dance parties for children with special needs 7 days a week and helped a mailman in need by giving him a poncho in the pouring rain. We have 2 videos showing Mr. Martinez in action. Can we go ahead and play those videos?
In today's All Good News story, some special needs residents find out that if you can't go to the party can come to you. Eyewitness News reporter Jade Hernandez shows us a unique party on wheels, bringing joy to those who need it most.
This is Love Up Close, and it's been organized by this self-proclaimed special need mobile DJ, Gregory Martinez. He, along with all of these other partiers, are on a mission.
It's what we call a special needs pop-up party.
And this is how they roll.
What inspired us to do these special pop-up parties was there was a day where my son was wondering why. Why had he not gone to program? Why was he just being at home for so long? And he didn't understand what was going on with these troubling times.
Gregory's son Andrew has special needs, and he missed his friends. Like Travis Barney, seen here in his USC t-shirt, Gregory decided to bring the party to Andrew's friends, cheering up not only his son, but his son's friends who also live with special needs.
They don't have a clue of what's what's happening in the world.
And so for about 15 minutes, these free dance parties, which have been going strong now for 3 months, thanks to volunteers, offer up some fun, an opportunity for smiles, and of course, the floor to bust a move.
Give it up for Travis! All right, Travis!
Travis's mother, here with her mask on, is grateful.
Music is such a big part of their lives, and they love music, they love dancing and singing.
The Dance Along Caravan makes about 7 stops a week, but the fact Gregory can't help more people gets to him.
I wish I had more time to help more families, more friends, but it's just that we only have Saturdays to do it, and I just want to let them know that we're there for them. We want to let them know that we haven't forgotten the special needs community.
And he hasn't. And he's reminded a lot more people music brings everyone together, even if from 6 feet away. In West Covina, Jade Hernandez, ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
Video of some wet weather kindness in West Covina going viral. Gregory Martinez spotted his mailman delivering mail in the rain and felt he needed to do something to help, so he gave him his brand new poncho. The mailman wasn't able to put it on himself because he was carrying that large bag and had a headlamp on, so Gregory and his daughter helped. He shared the video and says it's not only racking up likes, but mail carriers have been thanking him as well.
And that's just the small, simple acts of kindness, a poncho, but I'm sure that it means everything to that mailman. And
so I just wanted to thank Mr. Martinez, and if we could have him come up to the podium, please. Is he here today? Oh, he didn't show up? Oh, he's running late. Oh. We had a certificate for him, and, we just wanted to present the good that occurs in West Covina, and we wanted to show that, and we appreciate that. So, we could present the certificate right after. Our next presentation, I'd like to bring up Mr. Santos to the front. Is Mr. Santos here? Okay, perfect. So Mr. Santos generously donated 100 meals to the Senior Meals Program. So we just want to say thank you for donating generously to our seniors. Okay, thank you. So would you like to say what meals you donated? And we'd also like to support our small businesses. They are located here in West Covina. You're more than welcome to let them know where you are located. But what meals and how was it? So go ahead and...
So my name is Jason, and this is Kit. We operate Foods and Ramen in West Covina. And we decided to kind of give back to the community. We donated 100 chicken ramens to the seniors of West Covina. I figured 2021 should be a different strategy in terms of helping people out. So I figured, the more we do and give back to the community, we can kind of get back on track.
So thank you. So City of West Covina would like to present you a certificate.
Oh, appreciate it.
Could you let them know where you're located at?
I'm in Foods and Ramen in Hong Kong Plaza on Glendora Avenue.
If you want to taste the meals, feel free to stop by and support our small businesses as well. So here it is. We'd like to present a certificate for your kind donation to our seniors and giving back. Thank you for coming. Now to oral communication. We will now move to oral communication. If anyone would like to address the council, please fill out a yellow speaker card and submit it to the Assistant City Clerk. Additionally, due to the current and ongoing public health emergency, oral communications are being accommodated via telephone call request by 5:30. Any emails received by 4 p.m. Have been posted to City website. All emails are part of the public record. So we will begin, but before we begin public comment, I'd just like to remind everyone that public comment is primarily for agenda items in city businesses, usually spoken from those who live, work, shop, and or has some ties to or interaction with our city. And I just want to let everybody know that we're pretty much all reasonable adults here. And though I cannot tell you what to say or do, since it is your right to speak, but I want to remind you that it is also everyone's right to listen. For me, it is very difficult to hear and listen to a message when it includes profanity, racial slurs, racist comments, and just foul language and attitude. But that being said, all I ask is for some respect and for some form of decorum in our council chambers. But if that doesn't happen, I do apologize to our residents and our guests for having to see or hear it. But as long as it doesn't become disruptive, the floor and your 5 minutes is all yours. So, Assistant City Clerk, how many speakers do we have today?
We have 13 in chambers, and we have 2 on the phone, Mayor.
Okay, go ahead.
Our first speaker is Mike Greenspan, followed by Jerry Patras, followed by R. Robinson.
Mike Greenspan, a Bruin butt kicking Florida Gator. Now, I'm going to talk about my favorite issue, getting rid of this governor, getting a new governor. And the thing with Gray Davis, he got recalled in a second term. But Gavin Newsom's not going to be so fortunate. He won't see a second term. I've projected he'll serve 3/4 of a term, and I think I have to project that number downward to 5/8 of a term. Now, let me give you to download a petition in case you haven't signed one yet, and I've got some on me, but in case you want to get it, go to www.rescuecalifornia2021.com and get a petition and sign it. After all, we're at the point now where every day KNX is giving a new story on the recall. Sorry, Tony Wu, they haven't come to you for sound bites again, but I'm sure that maybe you'll step up and support the recall and let it be known that we want restaurants and other places opened up too, not closed down, shut down, and people put out of business and people put out of work. Now, they've lost their jobs, and Governor Newsom should lose his job. I give them credit. They could at least read a poll, but the poll's not what they want to say. In fact, the latest poll shows his approval rating has dumped from 64% to 46%. I guess an inversion of the numbers. Also, 36% today would vote to recall him. 45% would not, and 19% are undecided. And I think that 45% number of the no side is about the peak. They're going to go down. After all, when we looked at L.A. Council President Herb Wesson after the March primary in a very crowded race for supervisor, he had 33%. And Holly Mitchell had 26%. And, of course, those numbers flipped when the general election came around. Holly Mitchell had 61%, and Herb Wesson had 39%. And I enjoyed going to the forum at LA Trade Tech on January 31st, holding up my Anyone But Wesson sign. And it was a pleasure. Probably the greatest thing on that election was seeing Herb Wesson lose, so we don't have to see him on the Board of Supervisors messing things up like he did at City Hall. So I'm not worried that the number currently is 36% because we'll probably take the greater majority of that 19% undecided, and some will still defect from that undecided. And you can't just say, oh, this is John Cox, sour grapes. No, there's another candidate in there, a very viable candidate, and I forget his name, but he used to be the mayor of San Diego. And he's noticed all the businesses that have closed and the people who've lost their jobs. And Democrats are telling him, hey, I'm on your side. What do I need to do? So when Gavin Newsom goes, it'll be great. And I just can't, as long as we're going to be firing Gavin Newsom, let's teach the new governor that there's a blue pencil and a state budget, and UCLA's consistent losing football record happens to be covered by us taxpayers. So one thing that the new governor needs to do is to blue pencil the UCLA football budget, and then that money, we talk about defunding the police. I've been for years in favor of totally defunding UCLA's losing football program. Chip Kelly is not homeless. He makes $3 million a year. I don't know where he lives, but I do believe, and the pastor could back me up, I'm a man of faith, that he is not homeless. And so we need to transfer that money to the county to LA Support Services for the homeless. After all, when UCLA loses a football game, I tend to act like Stan Laurel of Laurel and Hardy, who would say, another fine mess you've gotten us into, Ollie. Well, another fine loss for UCLA football at the expense of the taxpayers and homeless support services. At least UCLA invented social distancing in their game against the overrated Utah Utes when they lost 45-3. They were not on their defense within 6 feet of the guy who had the ball in the Utah Utes. We almost needed the services of Supervisor Janice Hahn, who was a cheerleader in high school. Well, maybe the Bruins will score. Well, they got 3 points, but that's not enough when the other guys have 45 points. So it's time to get rid of UCLA football and Gavin Newsom. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jerry Patras, followed by R. Robinson, followed by Herman.
Hi, Jerry.
Good evening. It's very disappointing to me for the first thing to come out of my mouth will be to say I'm shocked that item number 4, such an important item to us residents, is on the consent calendar. Last meeting I asked on behalf of West Covina neighbors that you watch the consent calendar and pull things off, don't put them on to discuss. It really is disappointing. It's a good faith effort, a dialogue between residents and the council. That said, Inland Valley Humane Society is a very impressive facility, and it's got a good spirit. And so I'm convinced that this change will result in a much better service for West Covina residents. That statement was made by City Manager Dave Carmody at the July 2nd, 2019 City Council meeting in response to Mayor Pro Tem Wu's statement he had sent City Manager Carmody to Inland Valley to, quote, take a look, unquote, at Inland Valley. When City Manager Carmody made that statement, he spoke very highly of Inland Valley in terms of quality of staff, training, a very active volunteer program, philosophy of getting to zero, no kill. Many residents agree with the city manager's assessment of Inland Valley. It's a much better service for West Covina residents. Our fur babies are important to us. They are as important to us as the fire stations are to the firefighters and you council members. So we need to dialogue on this issue. Money is one issue. However, I want to ask a question. What happened in the course of 581 days since the city manager made that statement? What I do know is LA County did not successfully transfer records to Inland Valley. I have a mailer sent to all residents. We were told that there was a problem. I then did a public records request and found, yes, there was a real problem. I didn't see the city management trying to resolve that problem. I saw technical emails going back and forth, and anybody that's been involved with the data conversion knows there's going to be problems. But I didn't see management trying to solve that problem. The pandemic lockdown occurred. That threw everybody off. Inland Valley is canvassing. I know they are. Got that from a neighbor. LA County's material says they're not canvassing. Contracting with LA County, a kill shelter that provides less services than Inland Valley and that is apparently unable to maintain accurate records on resident pets and who is not canvassing, just doesn't make sense. The staff report for this item is flawed. It's incomplete. My view is based on being a resident who's followed this issue from one city council and one city manager to the next. For instance, LA County provides services based on a fee for service. Inland Valley is a flat service charge. In the October 18th, 2018 City Council meeting, the discussion on county's new rate structure was projected over the next 6 years to bring out-of-pocket costs from $150,000 annually to close to as much as $1 million for the same services the city was receiving. LA County's 30-page agreement, has this rate structure in there, but the staff report doesn't have projections. Inland Valleys is an 11-page contract that I had to get originally through a public records request. We're so transparent nowadays, and it's frustrating. Other cities have transferred to Inland Valley with considerable success for both their budget and the residents' pets. West Covina should be able to do the same thing. Inland Valley provides exceptional services to residents. It's a no-kill shelter, one free return of a dog if they can identify the owner. Those services mean something. I ask that you look at the October 18th, 2018 City Council meeting, timestamp at 3 hours, 27 minutes, and 33 seconds approximately, and see what the previous council that went to Inland Valley said and did. Their explanation's worth your time. Thank you.
R. Robinson, followed by Herman, followed by Alex Lamb.
Good evening, Council. Bill Robinson, resident. I rise to speak to you about West Covina's animal care and control services. The staff report for agenda item number 4 is incomplete and riddled with error. I'm not a big fan of county government with respect to delivery of any public services. Contrary to the fiscal impact section of the staff report, West Covina will not save $165,000 annually by switching back to county service animal control out of Baldwin Park. It says that here. The savings will be approximately $165,000 annually. That's ridiculous. Furthermore, the staff report mentions that it says other cities, quote, other cities in the San Gabriel Valley that are served by LA County include Azusa, Baldwin Park, Irwindale, and Walnut. Fine, but the staff report does not mention, and it's on the Inland Valley Humane Society website, Inland Valley serves, I just mentioned 4 cities. Inland Valley serves Glendora, Covina, West Covina, Claremont, Chino Hills, Chino, Diamond Bar, Laverne, Montclair, San Dimas, Ontario, Pomona, and unincorporated areas of San Bernardino County. Your magic staff report doesn't mention that. It mentions the 4 misguided cities that are still receiving animal care and control from LA County. I've already said this. LA County doesn't provide any good public service at a reasonable cost. I think I've already said I'm really not a big fan of county government. Anyway, if you're going to believe this falsehood about the $165K savings, I've got a deal for you. Why not use the $165,000 saved over the 5-year period to purchase a Tranquility base on the moon? As a future city park, some of the residents might consider you visionaries for investing those savings in a city park on the moon. Someday we'll be able to transport up there, and we could be the first city park on the moon. So you can use those savings for that, or alternatively, put a rider on the city manager's contract that if the $165K claim doesn't pan out, his contract becomes null and void. You ought to examine that claim on the staff report very, very carefully. Anyway, the bottom line is I urge you to disprove the staff recommendation and double down by urging the staff to work more intensively with Inland Valley staff to mitigate some of the outstanding problems that are still occurring in the current contract, and to make that contract work. You can't use the calculation, which is the average of past animal control services, because costs have risen. And if you're assuming an average of what the costs were in the past, you're wildly not estimating correctly the potential city costs. So you need to be making different assumptions. I've only got 10 seconds left, so thank you.
Herman, followed by Alex Lamb, followed by Colleen Rosati.
Good evening, my puppet friends. I'm here to talk about animal cruelty, because we all know that children watching in who pay attention to puppets know that I rule as the master puppet at City Hall conventions and arenas like this with Tony Baloney. Woo! So, Mr. Herman is bringing you to attention of these two documents for the Mayor Letty and Mr. Dario for the record.
I'll put them right there.
Thank you. Now, also for the record, I bring you my access complaint and my racketeering complaint from Homeland Security for documentation to be on the record as my testimony of complaint. Why you continue to discriminate against animals? Why? People are very upset by this whole situation of animals being mistreated by your departments, especially the county. Now, let me talk to you about the fire department. Good luck. What about the police department? Well, earlier today, I heard a conversation by Mr. Herman.
Shut up.
No, they were talking about the cadets from LAPD that were being fucked by police. Excuse the language, but that's protected speech. So, as you see, I want to remind the world that it's illegal to refuse to sell rent or lease housing to individuals because disabilities. Housing is not available when it actually is available, Tony. That's why you went to China. You and that other gentleman, what did he call himself, a veteran? No, you don't go out to the country to steal our money with racketeering, Tony. And you, Madam Letty Lopez, is his name Jennifer Lopez? Nah. Heh. Anyways, children, you know when I watch SpongeBob...
Shut up. Stay on topic.
All right, jackass, shut up too. All housing and accommodations are covered under state law, except for certain in circumstances are those in which only room is rented to a single-family resident. You have those empty facilities down the street off of Sunset in West Covina, that huge facility that you continue to discriminate against people who can't pay their rent. Why is that? Why can't you be humane about things for people in our community? And why, Miss Meta Mayor, are you working with Tony Woo Woo to steal our money? People complained about the budget, that the city is almost bankrupt because they're stealing your money, and the way to fix the problem is to raise taxes in the following years to come with that jackass Gavin Newsom. So I keep telling you people, stop being stupid. Listen to puppets, they're real. Children, when you watch SpongeBob, he always calls his friends idiots, idiots, idiots. So I come to this console to talk to the idiots too. I want them to know that you, and you all count in our society. That housing should be available to people who are disabled, elderly especially because they're on low income, and the community that suffers because of the depression of such a horrible coronavirus caused by Tony and all the other jackass mayors in the state of California. I got you, Tony. You thought I was going to say something good? No shit. Sorry. I'm taking my language from when you had the argument with Brian last week, remember? Or 2 weeks ago, yeah. You and Brian got crazy. You told him shit. Hey, kids, that's an acronym. You figure it out and call me. Call your superheroes at LA, like Mayor Eric Gaga Garcetti, who failed to vaccinate millions of people, and that also vaccinations are not available. You're all going to die. And what about that moron from LA who couldn't say, I pledge allegiance? Kevin DeLeon, you're an asshole.
Thank you, Mr. Herman.
Who do I give these to?
I'll take the city clerk.
Good job, man.
I know, shut up. Oh, get your fucking...
Alex
Hey,
Lamb,
shut up.
followed by Colleen Rosati, followed by Bill Elliott.
Hi, everyone. My name is Alex. I'm a resident of West Covina, specifically District 2. I'm here to express my concern, frustration, anger, and disappointment with the city and how we are handling the homeless and transient issue that we have in our streets. These are our neighbors, and they are in need of our help, many of which have mental illness problems, and they are left to their own devices with very little resources and very little aid from our city. There have been encampments set up by homeless people and transients all throughout District 2, and many of these areas are extremely unsanitary. There is harassment being done to and by these individuals, and there may or may not be crimes committed to or by these people. I would like to provide you with an example of my own that I have experienced in my neighborhood. Last week, a transient showed up in our neighborhood and parked his car along with all of his belongings in and around his vehicle right outside my home. He is less than 20 feet away from my door due to the design of my driveway. He has entered my property, or he has stepped onto my property to try to sell me some of his own personal belongings. There are families in the neighborhood that have children, and they are all afraid to let their children play outside. It is very frustrating for me to experience this. My neighbors and I, we have begun to call the police last week when he showed up, and every single time the operators on the phone tell us that someone will be sent and something will be done, and he is still there today. And it has been close to over a week now when he first showed up in our neighborhood outside our homes. It is very frustrating to see the deterioration of District 2 and how our city has been handling homeless people. I am here to plead with the city to research more, to give more effort, to do more, to help our neighbors in need. Thank you for your time.
Colleen Rosati, followed by Bill Elliott, followed by Rosa Rios.
Good evening, everyone. Colleen Rosati, City Treasurer, member of the Audit and Finance Committee. I'm sure you're all aware that Wednesday, January 27th, we met the Audit and Finance Committee to go over the state audit along with the revenue report and a few other items. I just kind of wanted to reiterate, in my opinion, a few key points from that meeting for those that weren't able to tune in and maybe you weren't able to watch. A common thread that seemed to run through the report was quality control and risk management, along with revenue spending and reserve funds. Collecting and using data when giving budget recommendations, employee cost, accountability, taking ownership and follow through, contracts and how they're negotiated, and how they negotiated, are they in the best interest of the city, the residents, or political leadership? So I asked, where do we go from here? And I think a lot of these issues can be turned around. And as I've stated, we need to strategize and have a strategy plan for each department, which will require a buy-in from department heads and staff. I think as a committee, we should collaborate together using our strengths, those of us that are on that committee. Start with what is at most risk and cost effective. Create obtainable goals that can be measured. Create obtainable deadlines. I think it's most important that we take ownership and have accountability and commitment and follow through. I suggest that I'd like to see and proceed that maybe a subcommittee is formed. Those of us that are currently on the Audit and Finance Committee can review contracts. As a suggestion, we're more than happy to help. Those of us who are more experienced with cost sharing or prioritizing city resources. Review internal process or operational proceeds. What is most at risk for the city? The reduction of financial waste and possible fraud. The key here is, does the city really want to change on how we do business? If so, we need to make a commitment by all parties involved. With all due respect, I do think it's time that the city has the manpower to move forward and become a more prosperous city as we once were. Just a few key items on the expense report that we're currently over budget on, which I brought up in the meeting. Litigation costs are a common thread that went through. Capital leases in most departments are over budget. Service contracts need to be reviewed. Legal services are over budget. Vacation buyback, which I realize is a union issue, but currently is over budget. I think the key to moving forward on, I believe Robin's starting to prepare that, is really collecting data. That was a common thread that ran through our discussion the other night, and really find out what the numbers are and not guess. Thank you for your time. I hope it was informative. The Audit and Finance Committee will continue to be due diligent and move forward. Thank you.
Bill Elliott, followed by Rosa Rios, followed by Teresa Kozad.
Good evening, City Council. I want to start out tonight by reminding you that 3 police chiefs ago, the West Covina City Council changed the definition of good cause as it pertains to concealed carry permits in West Covina. The voters installed a city council that voted that into a resolution, but it was rejected by the police chief. And on his way out the door to his golden parachute retirement that we're paying for every year in our unfunded pension liabilities, he decided to surrender his authority, not just his authority, but the authority of future police chiefs, to issue concealed carry permits in West Covina. That was a kind of a backhanded departure by the chief. We've had 2 chiefs since then, and we are no closer to having concealed carry become a reality in West Covina for law-abiding citizens to protect themselves, their families, their homes, their businesses. Now, I don't know if you heard or not, but there was a California police officer, excuse me, that was just appointed the Dallas, Texas police chief. And I don't know if he's going to bring his brand to Texas, but Texas has had concealed carry for law-abiding citizens longer than almost any state. And I don't know if you know what constitutional carry is, but that's the trend in our country today. I can't quote exactly the number of states, but it's staggering how many states have constitutional carry. Well, Bill, what's constitutional carry? It's no permit at all required. If you're a law-abiding citizen, you have valid ID in the state, and you feel the need to carry some protection for yourself, you don't need a permit. And that's the trend. I believe it's over 1/3 of the states. So I'm asking the City Council tonight to recall that MOU, that Memorandum of Understanding with the sheriff, and let's reclaim our authority. You know, the city of Dallas recruited this police chief from California. I think that when we go on to our next chief, and they, you know, what we pay them never goes away until they die. We're probably paying for 10 chiefs right now on our unfunded pension liability. And I think when we pick our next chief, we ought to have that MOU recalled. We ought to be able to have that for our future chief who might think about honoring the Constitution. And maybe we could even recruit just from like San Bernardino or Riverside County that already has that. And, the vast majority of the people walking around West Covina malls who are carrying concealed legally are all from Riverside and San Bernardino and Orange counties. So I'd like to see some action on that. Also, I'd like to say that I watched the maintenance manager last week talking about the trees and the janitorial service, and I was kind of appalled that he seemed like he was advocating for the tree company. Oh, we need extra $300,000. And I'm sure there's a lot I don't understand about that, but I do know that you have a contract, and the person you have the contract with, the company you have a contract with, comes in and goes, hey, can I get another $300,000? I'll be able to do everything we need to do if I just get an extra $300,000. And then we have the janitorial service contract that, and he's recommending going with not the lowest bid. And it's $100,000 more than the lower bid. And he gave a bunch of excuses, frankly, of why he didn't want that company. And, that's the mindset that is the problem, is why West Covina is in a financial situation that we're in. $100,000 here, $300,000 there. It's troubling. We can't live by that old standard anymore. And so I hope that we tighten our belts up. I know we're going in the right direction now, but we have a long way to go. And I would like to see some action on that as well. And there was a couple of other things I meant to tell you, but I can't remember. I should have made notes. Well, I would like to say something about something I observed during the Pledge of Allegiance, but I'm just going to leave that alone tonight. Thank you.
Rosa Rios, followed by Teresa Kozad, followed by Peter Den.
Good evening, City Council. 2 weeks ago, you guys met my son-in-law, Aaron Perez, and you met my son, Danny DeHaro. I am Gabriela Elizabeth DeHaro's mother, who was senselessly shot and killed on January 2nd at the intersection of Amor and Azusa. Now, when I think of Amor and Azusa, it's a very busy intersection. There's a lot of businesses, mind-boggling to me is that there's actually 2 cameras facing the direction where my daughter was murdered. And I don't know what the main purpose of those cameras are. I assume is they're activated to catch commuters passing a red light. That's what I assume. I challenge you guys to think outside the box. Be brave enough to think outside the box. How can we better utilize that equipment that we have in place now to protect the community? We know that the city of La Puente is dealing with a pandemic, but more importantly, they're dealing with violence, crime. Innocent children are dying on a daily basis. It's not acceptable to say, my son-in-law said, we were just at the wrong time, at the wrong place. No, you weren't. You were simply going to get something to eat. That little 5-year-old that got shot, by the grace of God, nothing happened to me, he's okay. But he was not at the wrong time, at the wrong place. He was at his house, helping his mother probably take out groceries and put them into the house. A 20-year-old who was shot and killed in front of his house. He was not at the wrong time, at the wrong place. He was in front of his house and murdered in front of his parents. We need to do better. Amber Alert. The Amber Alert started because there was nothing in place. What we had in place was not working. What we have in place right now, if we have anything in place, it's not working for the city of La Puente, and it's a matter of time that it triggers. It starts trickling down to West Covina, to the surrounding neighborhoods. So I challenge you guys, be brave enough to think outside the box and come with solutions, because we cannot afford to have any more lives taken. While my prayers were not answered to keep my daughter here, Gabriela made a pact with God, and they answered someone's prayers. My daughter, at the tender age of 18, decided to become an organ donor. And because of her heart, her lungs, her kidneys, her pancreas, her liver, her bones are going to save and give some very blessed recipients a second chance of life. So her legacy will continue. And now my trust with West Covina Police Department, under the direction of Ken Davis, John Vega, and Evan Myrick, they've asked us to trust them. That's all I have left. I'm just praying that God has set these angels on my daughter's case to have her bring justice. And hopefully, this is what I call them with all due respect, cowards and maggots. They bring nothing good to the community. They just hurt. And I am praying that these, 3 angels right here will solve my daughter's case. And I'm asking you guys, use the technology that we have in place for better use instead of giving citations that are just going to go unpaid. If we were to have those cameras run 24 hours and you have a shooting that happened around that vicinity, at least you have something to go to and say, let's see what we caught. And the Amber Alert started simply by a grieving mother saying that the system that was in place was not good enough. And look at what we have now. Over 50 states use the Amber Alert. Thank you very much for your time.
Our hearts, thank you for speaking. And I just wanted to let you know this morning we did have a Mayor's Coalition meeting with the local law enforcement this morning. I was in attendance along with Chief Bell, and we are working on this, addressing these issues. So thank you for speaking.
Thank you so much. God bless.
Teresa Kozad, followed by Peter Din, followed by Nicole Bresciani.
Good evening. It's often said that one should stop and breathe before moving from one activity to another or before making a difficult decision. So tonight I'm here to ask you to stop and breathe before making a decision on item 4. In fact, I would like it pulled from the consent calendar. Change from the Inland Valley shelter to the county shelter. We have only been with Inland Valley for 2 years, and in one of those years, we were involved with the issues related to COVID. And then another part of the year, Inland Valley was trying to get the records from the LA County, but that never happened. Any investor knows you don't just buy and sell at the whim of the stock market. You're in it for the long haul. We should be in it for more than 2 years. On October 16th, 2018, when West Covina was considering the move from LA County to Inland Valley, Chris Freeland, the former city manager, explained that LA County is making changes to its fee structures over the next 6 years. All fees are going up on an incremental basis. The county is in the middle of that 6-year restructuring. Do you know what the fees will be in 2 years? Do you know what the fees will be in 3 years? Do you know what the fees will be in 4 years? You don't know. And I can tell that from the staff report that was put out. That did not include the incremental raise in fees at all. And in fact, Chris Freeland did make a calculation, and he said that in 6 years, the city of West Covina will be paying $476 for impounding one dog. That's because of the increase in the incremental fees. Usually they charge by day. In the end of 6 years, they'll be charging for 10 days. So you'll be paying $476. I don't think that was reflected in the report that was given. We just can't move from one shelter to another because you think it's cheaper right now. Please be transparent with the financial reasons for moving. I have been asking for this information since June of last year. I emailed Mr. Carmody, and he had the assistant city manager, who is no longer with us, call me, and I was assured that I would be kept informed of any negotiations. That has not happened. Transparency. Many council members, including Mr. Carmody, have toured the Inland Valley. They know the shelter provides excellent service to the public as well as compassionate care for the animals. The service at Baldwin Park is terrible. Long waits and the conditions for the animals are quite sad. I know from experience. I have a dog. He's part of my family. I would not want him sent to Baldwin Park. Please consider the best service for the residents before making a change. If this is a budget issue, I would like to remind you that at the last meeting, you approved by consent over $1 million for long-needed repairs to the fire stations. As residents, we don't have a big organization or a lobby or a union to lobby for us, but we do have our voice. Please listen. Lastly, I would like to make a suggestion that we explore together. Perhaps we could think about raising the fees of licensure. When were the fees last raised? How much do other cities charge? I know as a senior resident, I only pay $10. I'm willing to pay more. Maybe we could look at that together. There's lots to explore before making a change. Please look carefully at all the options. Be transparent and take a breath.
Peter Den, followed by Nicole Bresciani, followed by Alyana Nalepo.
I'd like to begin my public comments by acknowledging the land and the native peoples to whom this land belongs as its original caretakers. This is the land of the Tongva Nations, and they are still here. We stand in solidarity with all indigenous people and the right to self-determination and justice. We commit to working towards the healing of the generational trauma, theft, and dispossession native peoples have faced and continue to face today. My grandfather was an American Vietnam War veteran. I never knew him because he died in the war, and his only connection to our family was him impregnating my grandmother, who lived in a village in northern Vietnam. But because of my grandfather, my dad naturally had U.S. citizenship, and when we immigrated to the United States, I had it too. But regardless of any distinctly American blood I had in me, there was still a cost that I had to and have to pay still as a minority living in this country. And the reason why I'm speaking about this is because while my cost is shielded with some sort of racial ambiguity, or what I would like to say is a pretty good English accent, there is a cost of minorities across this city that is rising every day. It is the cost of the life that comes with Salvadorian 18-year-old Andres Cordado, who was killed by a police officer living in Covina. It is the economic cost of black and brown people in this country and in these cities that see a new grocery store opening up in their city and find out that they can't afford to buy from it. It is the cost that comes with being a gay man living in District 1 and having to deal with homophobic slurs written all over his house. And it is the cost of Indian, Asian, any families, minority families living in District 3 that have to deal with people telling them that where they live is only for white people. And it is also the cost of having racial slurs directed at the council from people that come up here and have swastikas on their masks. And I'm standing here in front of a council that knows how it feels to have a cost. Councilmember Wu, as an immigrant yourself, you know how it feels. Councilmember Brian Tabatabai, you know how it feels when the color of your skin makes you match a suspect of a criminal in the area. Mayor Letty Lopez, you know how it feels being a Latina Filipina mayor. Councilwoman Rosario Diaz, you know how it feels being a Latina councilwoman. And Mayor Pro Tem Dario Castellanos, which many may not know, immigrated from Mexico himself. And so I am standing here celebrating that diversity and calling it what it is while asking myself what good has come from it. As everyone up here has been successful in lowering their costs, maybe through a life of service or maybe through a life of wealth and prosperity, they have forgotten about the cost of the marginalized people in this city that have to pay more and more every day. This issue is ignored and swept under the rug. Because as minority leaders have grasped power, all it takes is a willful ignorance for that power to go to waste. All it takes is the celebration of the easy, to celebrate words of MLK and the forgetting of the entire month that he was murdered advocating for. All it takes is the recognition of MLK's dream, a dream that we believe exists but has not manifested itself in the city that we live in, and a dream that is not dreamt simply because Martin Luther King said it, but a dream from the words that we want to dream as well if we believe in it. Because we forget that for every person that attacked black people at a sit in the 1960s, for every person that makes a racist public comment in the year 2021, for every person that starts a hateful church in El Monte, there are millions of other people that saw it happen and did nothing, especially leaders. I, like mostly everyone else here, is advocating for an emergency community committee meeting to install a HEAR commission in this city and take the first steps to address and correct the culture of hate that is brewing in some pockets of our communities and that is brewing right here in this city hall. We must not use our diversity to fuel a dangerous identity politics that does not help the marginalized communities that we are a part of. We must begin to foster a culture where people not only feel proud to live in West Covina, but they feel safe to live in West Covina. A culture where we effectively work to eliminate the costs for everybody while understanding that the cost may be more for some groups. So, council, today, as my time is running out, I ask you a question. What side do you want to be on? Do you want to be the side of alleviating that cost? Do you want to be the side of fighting for marginalized communities in your city, or do you want to be on the side of ignorance? Because like I said before, all it takes is a willful ignorance for power to be wasted, but all it takes is a simple first step for it to be used for good. So, I have 25 seconds left. The answer is simple to me. The answer is simple to my colleagues. The answer is simple to the next generation of people that love West Covina, that have lived there their entire lives. And I hope that the answer is simple to you as well. So make your choice. Take that first step forward, council. I implore you to install a HEAR commission in the city. I implore you to denounce any pieces of hate in this city, and I implore you to denounce that man cheering with the swastika on his mask as well.
Nicole Bresciani, followed by Alyana Nalepo, followed by Emmy Lou.
I know. Good evening, Madam Mayor, City Council, staff, and community members. Congratulations to the two newly elected. My name is Nicole Bresciani, and I'm here on behalf of the Inland Valley Humane Society and SPCA Board of Directors. Wanted to touch upon item number 4 tonight. I'm not here to try to win back the contract that we have been noticed on that's ending on June 30th. But what I would like to do is just take a minute to talk about a couple points in the staff report. One of the items says that the revenue to date as of December 31st was $56,000, and that's actually wrong. It's $116,000 for the end of December, trending to be over $200,000 for the revenue. We had a preliminary conversation in December to discuss the potential of what the cost would look like. So we had a discussion that was off record, but it bears repeating since there's a listing of $165,000 savings for next fiscal year. We offered a contract of over $600,000, and that was with guaranteed revenue. So that was the net cost. So when you're saying it's $165,000, we're talking about a few thousand, and that was a preliminary conversation, so nothing final. All of our contract discussions are taking place now through March, and that's a pooled cost model. So LA County has a fee for service. We have a pooled cost model with the 13 cities. So I just wanted, on behalf of our organization, to clarify that. I wanted to let the residents know that through June 30th, if the city still moves forward with termination, the residents have the ability to access the home-to-home program that we launched in December. The home-to-home is a rehoming tool that keeps animals out of the shelter. So if you have an animal that you can no longer care for because of COVID, you've been displaced, you're moving, you can utilize that service. It's free. There's no money exchange to adopt, and there's no money exchange to give your animal to a loving home. It's all driven by the owner and an interested party, and that's a new partnership that we launched in December. So the residents, again, would have access to that through June. Wanted to highlight that we did a first ever drive-through vaccination event in the city of West Covina at Cortez Park in November, and we microchipped and vaccinated over 500 animals. We also, yes, this is exciting. We also do our low-cost vaccine and spay and neuter on site at Inland Valley. To date, we have done over 100 animals for in-house vaccination, microchip, and spay and neuter. Wanted to also let you know, yes, to confirm, we are one of the only in Southern California doing canvassing. It's a contactless canvass, which we are currently in West Covina, and we will continue to do that until we are completed. It's been an honor serving the city of West Covina. As you know, I'm on the other side of the dais at this time, but we look forward to serving you through June. So thank you.
Thank you.
Alyana Nalepo, followed by Emilu Vergel de Dios. Sorry if I mispronounced. And Jim Grivich.
Good evening. My name is Alyana Nalapo. I'd also like to begin my public comment by acknowledging the land and the native peoples to whom this land belongs to and its original caretakers. This is a land of the Tongva nations, and they are still here. We stand in solidarity with all indigenous peoples and their right to self-determination and justice. We commit to working towards healing of generational trauma, theft, and dispossession native peoples have faced and continue to face. I'm a senior at Edgewood High School. I was born and raised here in West Covina in District 1. I go to church in West Covina and even came back after moving to Nevada a few years ago. West Covina has always and will always be my home. My family and my friends are here. I go to school in this district, and West Covina will always be a place where my childhood and teenage years belong to. However, I come in concern about the hate crimes happening in our city. With death threats and homophobic slurs being graffitied, it is not hard to imagine the most subdued hate within the city regarding the LGBTQ+ community and more is yet to be unleashed. Division amongst people in our community will become inevitable to happen. Let's take the bombing in El Monte Church as an example. Not just a random city in a small state, but a city that neighbors us. This church, known for its extremist and hateful views and wanting the government to do something about people in the LGBTQ+ community to execute them, whom they have praised the gay nightclub shootings, denounced BLM protests, and shared anti-Semitic sentiments. And that is not to fully place the blame on the church. In response, the spray paint of "Get Out," an improvised bomb, was a destructive and hateful act to the church. We cannot fight hate with more hate. As a city and a collective, we cannot stoop down to such levels and create further division. While this may seem like a single, couple, few known cases, not addressing such hate crimes driven by racism and homophobia only enables others to do the same, on both sides. If one person doesn't and it is not addressed and combated, this only allows others to do the same. As someone who has seen the city in a high regard, this passiveness of our city council and allowing such hateful things to be among us is unacceptable. Are we not to welcome others into our city? That it is okay to be hateful and hate our neighbors who see us as others? These are not the values I grew up to know. This not only endangers residents who are a part of minority groups, but affects our values in our city as a whole, which permits fear, hate, and division. And so I come with this, a Human Equity, Access, and Relations, or HERE Commission, that can help address these issues against minorities in our community. Like the first commission in San Gabriel and first in the San Gabriel Valley, the issues can properly address these issues in our community. This group can report to our city council to recommend, restructure, and evaluate policies, procedures, and more. Not only this, but those in the HERE Commission can collect data within our city to create such recommendations. Especially in this time of fear, hatred, and confusion, becoming transparent to our citizens and communicating and addressing these issues can help our city heal and encourage communication and unity, which will be positive in the long run. Ensuring equity and access for all members of West Covina truly shows the care and compassion we have for our neighbors. Caring for our neighbors, the greatest commandment, no commandment greater than these. And you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind and with all your strength. The second is this, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. While we have things that divide us, this commission can be a step for us in creating an equitable environment for all to have and have accessibility. For minority groups to be heard and taken seriously by a commission whose responsibility is to address these issues to our city council. And to conclude, at Edgewood, we are taught to be IB, open-minded and caring, and that we are the pride of West Covina. Mr. Hinman refers to us to be the best Covina, and we are constantly presented at our best in academic achievement, involved in many clubs and sports. Students get into the best colleges and receive the best scholarships. In ASB, we represent our school. We represent our city and where we come from. But whatever happened to the city representing us? Where is the city council when we fear being minorities in the city and that we will only be silenced? I urge you, the people urge you, to address these hate crimes, build a commission within our city, and adequately address these crimes against residents. Thank you.
Emilu Virgil de Dios, Jim Grivich, followed by Brittany Gutierrez.
Hi, good evening, Council and community members. I'd like to begin my public comments by acknowledging the land and the Native peoples to whom this land belongs as its original caretakers. This is the land of the Tongva Nations, and they are still here. We stand in solidarity with all Indigenous people and their right to self-determination and justice. We commit to working toward the healing of the generational trauma, theft, and dispossession Native peoples have faced and continue to face. Now, I'd like to bring attention to the hate crimes that are happening in our community. There has been multiple public comments in the past about the harassment faced by the residents in the Montera Point and South Hills neighborhoods, yet the city has remained complacent. The residents have been victims of racial slurs, even physical violence in their own homes. The attacks vary from glass bottles being thrown and being attacked by dogs, and even homes being flooded. I bring up these problems not to create more division, but to offer my hope and support for a solution that brings mutual healings for everyone involved. Please, as our elected officials, you can create that solution through establishing the HERE Commission, which would offer residents experiencing hate crimes and discrimination a real route they can navigate to resolve the issues in their community. San Gabriel City has created one, and many believe that this could be a good start to fostering an environment that is truly inclusive and safe for everyone. A quote by activist Audre Lorde that I think we can all live by, or at least a little closer to, is, "It is not our differences that divide us. It is our inability to recognize, accept, and celebrate those differences." So please consider creating a HERE Commission, and I thank you for your time tonight.
Jim Grivich, followed by Brittany Gutierrez, followed by JD.
Good evening. I am here to speak on item number 4, the animal control contract. My approach to this will be a little bit different from what you've heard before. Once again, I'm going to ask the council to pull an item off the consent calendar and discuss it. I believe all major decisions should be discussed by the council. I brought this up last time, and I guess I'm going to need to keep bringing it up until things change. This is a $600,000 decision, according to the documents. That's a lot of money. You should talk about it. The second issue I want to bring up on this is contracts need to be done a certain way. This contract was not done properly. I'm going to be specific. I'm quoting from the state auditor. West Covina has failed to ensure that contracting practices result in contracts that provide the best value to the city and the community. There's nothing in this document that you have before you that talks about the best value. There's discussion about costs, and those costs are disputed. There's no discussion about benefits. When you're considering a contract, especially a service contract, you need to talk about the benefits. What are you going to get for your money? What is the solution to these issues? Classic contracts are done a certain way, and generally it's referred to as a request for proposal process. So what I'm going to ask you to do tonight is to refer this matter back to staff and ask that it be sent out in the form of a request for proposal. And it should be to all possible vendors. In this particular case, it appears that only one vendor was considered, the County of Los Angeles. There's no way you're going to get a good price if only one vendor is considered, and there's no way you can even consider the benefits. Requests for proposals include that information. There was disputes tonight about the actual cost. What is it? How much money you're going to save? That's what a request for proposal does. People put down real numbers. And if they don't put down real numbers, then it's not responsive to the request for proposal. I can't believe that somebody would give you a contract, I'm going to charge you whatever it costs. That's not a proper contract. There has to be a set amount of money involved. There's also an issue about the pricing of the various services. As you notice, the two models that were discussed tonight, one has a price per service and another one has just a flat fee. Has there been any consideration to talk about the scope of the service? In other words, this city has a severe financial problem. One of the ways you can deal with financial problems is when you send out requests for proposal, you specify a scope of service that may be less than you're accustomed to in the past. That way, you'll get a lower price. That apparently was not considered. So those are the specific recommendations that I'm having to the council for tonight. Thank you.
Brittany Gutierrez, followed by JD, followed by Ruben.
Hi, good evening. My name is Brittany Gutierrez. I'm a student at Mount Sac Early College Academy. I would also like to begin my public comment by acknowledging the land and the Native peoples to whom this land belongs to as its original caretakers. This is the land of the Tongva Nations, and they are still here. We stand in solidarity with all Indigenous people and their right to self-determination and justice. We commit to working towards the healing and the generational trauma, theft, and dispossession Native peoples have faced and continue to face. In the light of the hate crimes that have occurred in West Covina, I would first like to extend my empathy towards those affected and for those who live in fear of undergoing the same events. In various districts throughout the city, there has been homophobia-driven crime and families enduring racially-driven hate crimes. These crimes are intolerable and also negatively impacting our community. City Council's failure to properly address these crimes or do something to take action and hold an emergency commission meeting is, quite frankly, unacceptable. San Gabriel has actually installed their own HERE commission that pushes for social justice, equity, and equality, and has actually successfully curbed hate-driven crimes. People shouldn't be scared of being discriminated against in the safety of their own homes. I myself am a minority and a member of the LGBTQ community, and I'm a student at the West Covina Unified School District. The tolerance demonstrated for hate is not only alarming, but scary. I shouldn't be scared to take the bus to school. I shouldn't be scared to walk to school, and neither should neither of your children. The council needs to take action to call for the HERE Commission because West Covina does not stand for hate. Thank you. Have a good evening.
JD, followed by Ruben, followed by Therese Garcia.
Good evening. Congratulations, Ms. Rosario, Mr. Tabatabai, and Mayor. I come up here to remind staff of something I had mentioned earlier, City Manager responded to, and have a question regarding activity that's taking place at Cameron Park. I'm sure you guys are familiar with. My reminder is there was an idea I posed regarding the inland animal shelter coming out and taking registrations at the park, similar to what's done when City Manager Freeland was here and Nicole herself was on City Council or part of the staff. And that was very successful, helpful to residents, because this transition from county to the inland has been rocking, right? Many of us have not been able to register our animals. I've made 2 attempts to go to inland back in March, found others there that weren't able to register their animals. Did receive notifications, so I have no excuse. But I find that if money's an issue for us, then maybe if we can set up some sort of day at the park where people can have their animals, bring their animals and pay the registration, whatever fees are due, that would be a good idea for the residents. There are many that elders, they can't get around as easily as others. My other concern is with the COVID testing at Cameron Park. While I support not only the testing, but the vaccinations, or is that the word I want to use? Immunizations given against the virus, I'm concerned that that's going to create quite a problem at that intersection that is already quite busy, right? And I'm wondering why it is that Cameron Park seems to be the center of attraction or the chosen park to have all these activities, whether it's the food drive, now the COVID testing. I understand there will be some immunizations being administered there. that's not the most ideal place. Now, recently, I'm sure we've all heard the incident at the fairground. The turnout was tremendous, but there was also some problems with people that object to immunizations. But the concern for me, as a resident in that area, is the turnout. It is, very much wanted vaccine right now, and rightly so. But is this the ideal place to have this activity? I'm wondering why not here at the Civic Center? Why not at Palms View Park? There are Cortez, other parks. I'm wondering why it's always Cameron Park. It seems kind of bizarre that it's always one neighborhood. I know that there are just a few of us around the park, so I guess you're not going to get too many people to object unless somebody goes around and starts petitioning. But Ms. Rosario, you represent now District 3, so this is a concern you should have for us. You may be on Merced, and I'm on Cameron and Lark Allen, but you represent my home, and I think that's something that you might want to think about. Why is it that we're always inundated with all the city's adventures, right? We need to be a little more, I think I'm borrowing your word a little too much, aren't I, Mr. Tabitha? You rub off on a lot of people, Brian. It's just, to me, it's a legitimate concern, obviously, because I live there, right? But the truth is, there is a lot of activity at Cameron Park. One of our softball team members came here, and Mr. Wu, you were the mayor then, and you said you were going to take care of the problem he addressed, which was teams from out of city coming in and playing on the playground, in the park facility, tearing up the softball field. A great deal of cars out there as early as 4:30 in the morning, and I'm not exaggerating. Nobody followed through with that unless it's request. I'm making hopefully a reasonable request that you consider the site that you're using for this COVID situation.
Thank you.
Be mindful of it. Thank you.
Mayor, we're going to go to our telephone speakers. Our first speaker is Ruben, followed by Therese Garcia. Ruben, I'm going to unmute you. Go ahead when you're ready.
Thank you. I want to begin my public comments today by acknowledging the land and the Native peoples to whom this land belongs as its original caretakers. This is the land of the Tongva nations, and they are still here. We stand in solidarity with all Indigenous people and their right to self-determination and justice. We commit to working toward the healing of the generational trauma, theft, and dispossession that Native peoples have faced and continue to face. A few weeks ago, when I learned that a church in Almani had been spewing extremist rhetoric to its congregation, I was disgusted. The church's pastor, Bruce Mejia, called on the government to round up and execute members of the LGBTQIA+ community. But Mejia didn't stop there. He also demonized Black Lives Matter for what he called a wicked agenda. He called women inherently weak, and he preached against Jewish people and their filthy lucre. Imagine making comments like this at a time when transgender homicides are up at record levels, when we have documented cases nationwide of Black people experiencing brutality from law enforcement, when violence against women, especially sexual violence, is considered a global health crisis, and when we've witnessed increased anti-Semitic incidents in the last few years. It's deplorable. And I was deeply disturbed by the trauma inflicted by this church on the residents of our neighboring city of Almani. If it can happen there, it can happen here. And it does happen here. Sadly, the city of West Covina, my hometown, is not immune from bigotry. Hate is brewing here too. Recently, a neighbor in District 1, a West Covina resident of 30 years, was the target of homophobic vandalism. Homophobic slurs and death threats were graffitied all over the residence. And in the South Hills Montera HOA in District 3, minority residents have endured various incidents of targeted racial harassment and threats of violence from none other than the Shoemaker family, relatives of the HOA president. Not to mention, a man just spoke to the chamber today with a swastika face mask. These actions are unacceptable. We've all witnessed the fatal toll that extremism and bigotry take on communities. The Charleston church shooting in 2015, the Pulse nightclub shooting in 2016, Charlottesville in 2017, the Pittsburgh synagogue shooting in 2018, and the numerous incidents that occur without coverage in every corner of the world. There is no place for hate or bigotry in our community, and we must call it out and eradicate it before it festers. As neighbors and fellow residents of West Covina, each of us deserve dignity and respect. We should not live in fear that we will be the next victims of harassment or violence simply because of who we love or the color of our skin or how we practice our faith, or frankly, anything else. Last November, the City of San Gabriel launched a city commission focused on cultivating social equity, and it was an immediate success. They call it a HERE Commission, which stands for Human Equity, Access, and Relations. It's been pivotal in addressing and combating the conflicts inflicted against minorities in the San Gabriel community. The Commission serves as an advisory body to the City Council and reports directly to the City Council to assess and recommend policies, procedures, and activities in the city government to advance the Commission's purpose. If you really care about West Covina, you'll act swiftly and decisively to create an inclusive city for all our residents. I'm demanding that the City Council hold an emergency community commission meeting to allow for the immediate installation of a HERE Commission for our city. I'm also demanding that the city adequately address and investigate the hate crimes that are endangering our residents. Thank you. I yield my time.
Our next speaker is Therese Garcia. Go ahead, Ms. Garcia, when you're ready.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, good evening. My name is Therese Garcia, and I'm a member of the Human Resources Commission for the City of West Covina. I am calling in to urge the City of West Covina to take a stand against hate in our community and to take proactive steps toward addressing and combating racism, discrimination, and hate-based conduct in our community. Several of our residents have been victims of recent crimes, targeted specifically because of their immutable characteristics, namely their race or national origin, and in another case, their sexual orientation. I watched the last City Council meeting and heard racist words spewed from the podium by community members. What better time than now for the city to take an official stand by rejecting, denouncing, and condemning racism, discrimination, and hate-based conduct in our community? I have several practical recommendations. First, design a plan to combat the hate. There's a plethora of material available, other cities to look to as models, blueprints for action, 10-point plans. The Southern Poverty Law Center has a community response guide, and the U.S. Department of Justice has resources on how hate crimes can be prevented in your community. Let's come up with West Covina's plan. Second, I'm calling on the council, on the mayor, to issue a proclamation. This act is a first step in acknowledging that there is a problem, bringing awareness to the issue, and making a commitment to address the issue. An example is the city of Elk Grove, California, which issued a proclamation declaring that Elk Grove is no place for hate. Third, utilize our existing community resources to the fullest. We can keep the fiscal impact to a minimum by turning to already existing resources. Allow the Community and Senior Services Commission to hold an emergency meeting to brainstorm ideas and a plan for addressing and combating these problems. I echo the call for the creation of a HERE Commission following the example of the city of San Gabriel. The Commission can advance and advocate for equity, access, diversity, social justice, safety, and respect for all members of the community. We should bring together different stakeholders, our elected and appointed officials, residents, businesses, educators, faith-based groups, nonprofits, and yes, even law enforcement. It's important to hold the perpetrators of crimes accountable for their actions, but allocating this problem only to the purview of law enforcement is inadequate, because by the time the handcuffs come out, the hate has already been allowed to permeate the community. We need to get to the root of the problem. West Covina is a beautifully diverse community, and I believe it is our obligation to create a safe community where all of our differences can flourish. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor, that is our last speaker.
Thank you. City Manager, will you please respond to some of these public comment concerns?
Good evening, Mayor and Council, members of the public. I appreciate the chance to just speak to some of these questions. We had a number of speakers tonight, and I appreciate them taking the time to share their thoughts tonight. A number of the speakers talked about the animal control contract, and I think my main point is that this is about cost of service. We are getting through, and I'm going to talk about it in the manager's report tonight, the pandemic era with difficulty in providing just essential services. With respect to this contract, we did address fiscal impact in the report. We say that the total amount of fees collected as of December 31, 2020 was approximately $57,900. The actual number is $57,896. Point to be made, this is significantly lower than expected. And so we're recommending a different model, a different service model with a different provider. We have to be very mindful of our expenses and keep them to an absolute minimum. A number of the speakers tonight, and I thank them for it, address the question of hate crimes. We've experienced some really unfortunate incidents in the last few weeks. We had a young woman killed, resultant of some gang violence. We've had members of our community suffer unspeakable graffiti etched on their home. In both cases, we responded immediately and appropriately and within the laws that we operate under. I cannot say loudly enough that we affirm the dignity and the worth of every member of our community that we serve. With respect to the hate graffiti, when I first got word of that, I think I shared the photographs of it so everybody would be aware of what we were looking at. We had police on scene immediately as soon as they cleared it as a hate crime. We had city crews there and abated the graffiti that was, defacing the motorhome and the home itself. We got the homeowner to sign off and give us permission to do so because we don't normally paint your house. But in this case, I broke some rules and would do it again tomorrow if we saw it again. And the last one I wanted to speak to tonight, we had so many speakers, but I wanted to speak to Mr. DeRue's comment about the site selection process for Cameron Park for our COVID testing partnership with the good people from Fulgent Labs and the county. We are responding in every way. This is the second time we've engaged in COVID testing. The first time we got external funding and partnered with Ultimed. In this case, we were able to accommodate a need quite quickly, and their site requirements were pretty clear. They wanted to run a walk-up. They wanted to do it at a place where we could give them clean bathrooms and electricity and lights. So Councilmember Castellanos and I were out there reviewing the site, and we promised them that the bathrooms would be sparkling clean and that we'd light it up to 1 foot candle of brightness during all hours. We insisted on 7 in the morning to 7 at night. There's a lot of need in this community, and we wanted to not just run it from 9 to 5 because we got a lot of working class people that just couldn't get there during those hours. It's proving to be a success so far. And the conversations we've had further right up until before this meeting with the people from Fulgent Labs is that they might be able to stand up even more testing sites for us immediately, and we're holding to the hope that those could be transitioned to vaccination sites, dependent on a lot of factors, all of the other factors out of our control, but we would support it entirely because we're trying to fight the pandemic. And I think that's all I've got this evening in response to public comments. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. And I just wanted to double check for the presentation. Did Mr. Martinez end up coming in today? No? Okay. Go ahead and continue.
Perhaps we could reschedule that if you like.
No worries. Okay. All right, so it's still your turn. It's the city manager's report.
I was going to ask her to tee it up, but she's out in front of me. I wanted to take a moment this evening just to recap last year, because I know we're constantly, it's almost permanent whitewater in the business of responding to deadlines and projects and requests and meeting demands, and certainly all those things have even more pressure during a pandemic. But I just wanted to take a look back as we turn the calendar to how we did last year, and I've got some good things to share. I'll try and be brief. We started last year's budget cycle with some community budget survey. We did some budget workshops. We got the budget balanced and adopted by the deadline before July 1st. And we had some pretty ambitious goals as part of that, and I'd just like to recap how we did against those. One of the indices of a well-run municipal organization is we want to have all of our labor unions under contract. So I want the council, I'm sure the council is aware, but I want the public to be especially aware that right now we've got executed MOUs with all of our labor groups. We've got 9, and we are still working hard to get the last one. Our employees, to help us get through the pandemic, took a 10% reduction against their benefits, and I'm very appreciative of that. Next slide. I wanted to mention one of our big accomplishments last year was the issuance of the lease revenue bonds for pension obligations. We've been working hard to quantify our problems and then to address them. In this case, we had an unfunded pension liability of some $204 million, and we were carrying it at CalPERS at an interest rate of 7%. So we went out to the municipal bond market. We got the bonds rated by Standard & Poor's to A+, thanks to our director especially, and in so doing achieved a net present value savings of some $52 million. And we got first-year budgetary relief because the interest rate dropped from 7% to 3.72%. And so we saved money in the general fund, which is the name of the game. If we hadn't done that, we were really quite concerned about cash flow. We would have been negative cash in the general fund by September to the tune of about $2 million. And so we're talking about turning out lights and not meeting payroll. And so this was not just a good idea, it was really an essential idea, and one that worked out quite well for us. Pleased to report for the fiscal year ending 1920, so last June 30th, we built back up the city's unassigned general fund reserves, our unassigned general fund balance, to $12.5 million. And it's our intention to keep that within council policy of a minimum of reserves, just so that we can get through a year with cash flow appropriately. Next slide. We talked about one of the council's priorities was to pursue more grants. I just wanted to highlight a few of those. We got a $310,000 grant to install new permit system software. We got a $340,000 grant to build a new playground at Shadow Oak Park. We got a $500,000 grant for a comprehensive rewrite of the city zoning code. That hadn't been done since the mid-'70s. And we got an $839,000 grant, which the city will have to match 20% of, just to get state park grants to rehab our parks, because some of them are in really not good condition. The Shadow Oak Park playground, by the way, the bid for that was awarded January 19th, and we will start construction on that project in April. I wanted to talk just for a moment further about our response to the COVID-19. I had previously mentioned the testing site with Ultimed. We partnered with them, and we used our supplemental CDBG funds to run that center at their facility on Sunset. It was very popular at that moment, and it's proving to be very popular again. I mentioned the site that we ran this week stood up at Cameron Park. We had 100 the first day, and we're going to do a better job of marketing that, but we think there's still a lot of need for testing. We're going to try and meet it. Next slide. I hope everyone in this room or watching this meeting is aware of our city's app, the Go Request system. We have, inception to date, harvested north of 9,000 requests for service through the app. So it's a really efficient way for us to harvest complaints and concerns about all manner of things, substandard conditions, graffiti, name it. And then we can get back to the resident with the disposition and the status. So I really encourage people to use our Go Request app if they can. Another highlight of last year was we began for the first time ever taking online payments. We were hearing from a lot of people, developers, et cetera, wanting building permits and entitlements to had to go find a check or write us one. They're really happy about that, and it's working well. Our police department, I won't spend a lot of time on because our chief did a really nice job of giving you his annual report at the last meeting. But right now we have a total authorized of 90 police officers and staff of 8. We've got new equipment. We've got 11 new vehicles last year, 8 for patrol, 1 for admin, and 2 for special enforcement team. The new staff that I mentioned includes our dispatchers, our record specialists, and our cadets. Crime rates are always up and down, but one thing we saw resultant of COVID is a big drop, a significant drop in those rates. Aggravated assaults dropped from 346 cases prior year to 72, robbery from 127 cases to 68, and narcotic violations from 635 to 334. Not all of our crimes were down. Some are up. Domestics are up. Property crimes fraud is up by a couple hundred cases, and property crimes vandalism is up by about 50 cases. Our fire department has done a very good job throughout the pandemic. I just wanted to highlight some of their accomplishments last year as well. Council authorized us. We purchased and put into use new PPE, personal protective equipment and gear, self-breathing apparatus, so we could be in compliance with all the laws and the OSHA regulations. In response to the COVID-19 pandemic, our rescue ambulances, our paramedics have been very busy. Our normal day in, day out or run is about 20, 25 calls a day. At the peak, as we followed the different peaks in terms of surges in the hospitals and people having spreader events that resulted in more infection, we were running twice that many. It has dropped, and last week it dropped significant. Week before last, we were at like 35 a day. Last week, we were back down to normal. And so while we had temporarily stood up supplemental care ambulances, we were able to shut that down, and we had stood up a 4th rescue ambulance. So we've got that back down to just the normal level of busy. Also, point to be made, our fire department has done a really responsible job of participating regionally and up and down the state as the state experienced all of these major fire events. Our personnel was on the scene for some 36 different deployments. Our community services division has shifted focus. While we closed most of our normal programs at a time of need, they pivoted, and thanks to some community members, we're able to distribute a lot of masks which had been donated. Our senior meals program shifted obviously from a in-the-room thing at the senior center to a hot meal and frozen meal that are either drive-up or delivered. And those numbers crested in April of May to 9,000 and 11,000 meals in June again. We're back down now to about 6,000 a week. And so it's still very popular and still providing good services. We also, in terms of community events, we're able to do some things virtually. The Pumpkin Run, and we did a drive-through Boo Halloween event. We had a holiday drive-in movie, the Polar Express. For that one, I think we had 40 people sign up and not quite that many come, but it was popular, and we'll continue to try and find ways to help people recreate, but we're trying to do it all socially distanced and respectful of the pandemic. Public Services Division, I think we've begun to produce, thanks to a new city engineering firm, produce capital improvement projects. We completed 2 different pavement rehab projects in 2020, each costing north of $1 million. And council's aware through our CIP we have more on the horizon. Our senior center has a remodeled bathroom. For that, we put it out to bid. We followed all the HUD rules, and we used CDBG funds, so it was paid for with our federal monies. I mentioned this next one. We had some resident concerns about a flooding situation at Orangewood Elementary School, and so the new storm drain was installed to prevent flooding there for people coming and going to school. Although we did a lot of CIP in 2020, we did several projects kind of in addition to the ones we had using available funds and change orders. We repaved the parking lot for Cortez Park as an example. We know we're not done, and we'll continue to complete more CIP in the coming year. In our community development department, we reached out and set up a program for forgivable loans for people that want to help retain jobs, businesses to keep them going. Our open air program, when the county allowed us to offer it with the different tiers, proved to be a pretty good success. We had 30 restaurants take advantage of that. Next slide, I wanted to report out the year-on-year building and safety permit activity up significantly. You can see across the chart there, 3,100 in 2018, 3,300 in 2019, and north of 4,000 in 2020. So we're continuing to see a lot of good building permit activity. New businesses in 2020, Chick-fil-A, Planet Fitness, Burger IM, Merrill Gardens, Florin Decor, some new restaurants. We had a total of 511 new businesses last year and closed about 130. We had an expansion project approved for Queen of the Valley Hospital. The plans were approved by the Planning Commission last week, but the council's role in that, the city's role in that, was we held TEFRA hearings and enabled them to compete and qualify for state financing. So that was a major step that enabled this project to go forward. We also closed escrow on the city sale of the Sunset Field to Eminent Health. That closed in September of last year. Our code enforcement, I mentioned the Go Request app. The people that make that happen is a team of 1 full-time code enforcement manager and 7 part-time. And last year they handled 3,200 cases and 6,000 property maintenance violations. And they've been very responsive. That's been a real bright spot. Our redevelopment successor agency sold some property. We sold the AAA pad to Singpoli Capital Group for $900,000, and we're continuing to comply with the city's long-range property management plan. Lastly, one final COVID update. We're back this week to the purple tier. Open dining is allowed. Personal care businesses can open at 25% capacity. Gyms and fitness centers can run outdoors. And we continue to encourage our residents to wear a mask and socially distance. Vaccinations are now available to all of our residents through the system by appointments only while supplies last. We're hoping they can increase supply. I talked about the COVID testing that's up at Cameron Park. We're going to try and get more sites open in the near future as we can to disperse that around the town. And that's all I have this evening for a manager's report. Thank you very much.
Thank you for showcasing all our accomplishments in 2020. Okay, next on is the consent calendar. Council, is there anything you'd like to pull? See none?
Yeah,
I'd like to pull.
Go ahead.
I would like to pull 4. Was that the same? Okay. So do I have a motion to approve consent calendar items 1 through 5 with the exception of 4?
So move.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilmember Tabatsbai?
Aye.
Councilman Wu?
Aye.
Councilwoman Diaz?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Castellanos?
Aye.
Mayor Lopez Viado?
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Okay, so item number 4. Who would like to make that report?
Good evening again. I've asked the Chief of Police to be front and center on this item tonight. We're going to be running animal control services out of the police department, and the Chief has a brief PowerPoint presentation that will be available for questions.
Thank you, City Manager. Good evening, Council, City staff, and members of the viewing audience. It's already up. I'll be presenting the report for agenda item number 4 in consideration of the City County Municipal Services Agreement with the County of Los Angeles Department of Animal Care and Control. Can you go to slide 2, please? When we entered into the agreement with Inland Valley Society on July 2019, the annual cost of our agreement was a flat fee of $895,000, which is offset by licensing fee, impounds, kennel care, administrative citations, court fees collected by the Inland Valley on behalf of the city. The total amount of fees collected as of December 31st, 2020 was approximately $57,900, which is significantly lower than expected. The city sent the notice of termination to the Inland Valley on July 1st, 2020, which started a 360-day termination period required of the agreement. June 30th, 2021 is the effective date of this termination. The cost of service through the Inland Valley have been higher than anticipated due to the reduced fees credits, which started before the pandemic. The city is now seeking to return to the county, which has previously handled our animal control services. The purposed city-county municipal service agreement is a fee-for-service model, while the Inland Valley Society has a flat fee model. And I'll explain that. Can you pull up the next slide? There we go. I don't know if you guys can see that very well, but the fee of $118,000 is the bottom fee, and if you look to the right, those are the fees at which we will pay if we actually use those services. When we put these numbers together, the fees that are currently with the county right now are the fees we used. Well, you'll see that the numbers that we used were actually from 2017, 2018, when we were actually with the county. The base price of the county agreement, as I stated, is $118,928, and the cost of field services and animal impounds is calculated hourly or at a unit price as seen in Exhibit 3 there. Based on previous historical averages from the county, and those are those 2017, 2018 numbers, which was the last time we were with the county, the city's anticipated cost for fiscal year 2021 and 22 is approximately $605,000. The city's actual cost for 2021-22 could be above or below the historical average, depending on the number of calls for service. If the city requests the county to provide canvassing for animal licenses, that service is billed separately. The county is currently not doing canvassing and has no plans to reinstitute canvassing services due to the pandemic. The county's agreement is a 5-year cycle, and we will be joining the existing agreement midterm. If the city council proceeds with joining the county, the agreement would begin on July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2024. The agreement termination pursuant to Section 7 includes 4 options of termination. One is 60 days prior to July 1st. The other is 60 days of any county fee increases. The third is 180-day notice, or 4 with 60 days notice in the event of an unsolved dispute. There are no anticipated changes to the West Covina Municipal Code, nor will there be any changes in the cost to residents for licensing. A county-based price contract could create a significant cost savings. However, the actual savings will vary depending on the use of service. The county animal shelter is based in, as stated in the report, Baldwin Park, and they also service the cities of Azusa, Baldwin Park, Urbandale, and Walnut. The city will save approximately $165,000 annually, and this is based on historical averages, using that data from 17 and 18. Inland Valley's contract net cost is approximately $770,000. The estimated county contract net cost is approximately $605,000, but the usage and cost may vary, as stated before. No budget amendment is necessary at this time. It is recommended that the City Council authorize the city manager to negotiate and execute a city-county municipal service agreement with the County of Los Angeles for the provision of animal care and control services by the Department of Animal Control, Care and Control. I do have with me tonight, I believe if they're online, 4 representatives from the county. I'm sorry? 3 representatives from the County of Los Angeles Department of Animal Care and Control, who are joining me by phone to answer any questions that you may have. And I'm not sure which 3 it is, but I'll read the 4 that was involved.
I have them, Chief, if you'd like them. We have Mr. Frank Corvino, Deputy Director for South County Operations. We have Allison Wasmere, Animal Control Manager, and we have Whitney Dong, Contracts and Grants Division Liaison. I'll go ahead and unmute them in case there's any questions you'd like them to ask.
Thank you. At this time, that will conclude my report, and I'm here to answer any questions along with the individuals mentioned.
Well, my question is, why was there a delay in getting the paperwork transferred from county to inland?
I do not have the answer to that. That happened a few years back. I wasn't involved in that, so I'm not really sure.
Does anybody online, Frank, maybe do you have an answer to that?
I apologize, I do not. It's Frank Covina, Deputy Director with South County, and Whitney, our contract specialist, might have some historical information on that. Whitney?
Sorry, can you repeat that question again, Mayor?
I wanted to know what was the delay. Why did the paperwork delay going from county to inland? The transfer and transition.
From my understanding, there's no delay. So I'm not familiar on what delay are you asking?
The paperwork and transition, because inland mentioned that they couldn't charge or go to the residents with their animals because they didn't get the information transferred to them.
My understanding is our IT provided all the data that are needed to Inland Valley. After that, Inland Valley never reached out to us regarding any problem with the data transfer.
Okay. And then my next question is, well, first, did you listen into the concerns that the residents had in regards to the county versus inland?
Yes, I did, Mayor.
Okay. As for fees, because we don't have the what's the tentative fee increase per year, as our former city manager mentioned. In 6 years, there will be an increase of fees.
Yeah, I do not have that at this time. I do not.
Did the other councils have any questions? Okay, go ahead, Councilman Wu.
Okay, I think in 2019, the budget, okay, we went through the budget. Okay, basically, we're talking about a couple of the deficit we need to take care. And I think this is what it's about. And I remember the Inland Valley, the deficit is $500,000. Okay, in the 2019. So I want to know, how about 2020? What is the deficit about we using this service? Because the problem is this: people want to save the money. People want to make sure we don't overspend the money, and then we want to make sure the city spend the money what we have. And if we have animal service and it costs us $500,000 deficit, and the second years, I think I asked, you told us about maybe Robin, you can come to explain to us how much is deficit, $400,000 or something. And I remember as a city council, I've been sitting over here for previous 5 years. I don't remember, okay, county, we have that kind of deficit. Okay, I think we even make some money, okay, and due to the canvassing, I have 2 dogs I pay all the time, okay, with registration fee. So, and my neighbor too. So I just don't understand how can we have such a mass deficit when we transfer to the, okay, Inland Valley. And another thing, as I remember when we approved back in 2018 or something, and then the contract is $600,000, but now I see it's almost $900,000. So where is $300,000 coming from? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. I was asked right before the meeting to gather some numbers, so these were done really quickly, and it comes out of our finance system. So I looked back through 1718 to 1920. In 2017-18, our revenues were $377,430. Our expenditures were $522,555. In 18-19, $522,040 was the expenditures. Our revenues were $215,556. I think the reason that the numbers fluctuate so much on the revenue side is when they canvass. From my experience in other cities, every other year the county would canvass. In 1920, our expenditures, that was with Inland Valley, were $894,999, and our revenues were only $57,115. Now, some people said there was a glitch in transfer of the data, but that's an 85% decrease in our revenue. I find it very hard to believe that it was all due to the county not giving them the correct information. So we went from $400,000 in revenue down to $57,000 last year. And through December of this year, according to my records, there could be timing differences of how we received the money, but through December of this year, it was $57,000. So even if you're getting $100,000, you're still 75% is lost in that revenue. And again, I pulled these numbers together really quickly. I would have to do more research to pull the contracts and stuff to make sure that I captured all the expenditure side for the county, but that's what it shows in our database.
So based on what your information, so we're not talking about $500,000 deficit because you're talking about the cost is more than $800,000, $900,000. We only have a $50,000 revenue. So we're talking about the totally loss is $850,000 to the city.
So even if it was double by June, say it's $100,000 at the end of this year,
then we still $700,000.
$700,000.
So that will become our general fund.
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm not here to advocate for the county or for Inland Valley. I'm just giving you the numbers.
I want to make sure we can have money to pay, and we want to make sure we have people to pay so we can, balance. We don't have such a big mass, deficit because, all the resident taxpayer want us to make sure we spend the money wisely. We just don't want to spend the money we don't have. Right now, we have a $800,000 deficit. It's already 2 years. I don't know how to catch up. 6 years, like Chris Freeland, previous city manager, say we're going to make money after 6 years. But now, for 2 years, we have a deficit almost like $750,000. So I don't know how we catch up. Look like based on this, I doubt it. And I know Nicole Brasiani, the CEO of Inland Valley Humane, is our previous assistant city manager. So she has all this information contract, and she told us we are going to save money. So that's what previous council approved.
In the original contract, I do believe it was 600 and some thousand, and then shortly after the budget was adopted, when Nicole was still working here, she came to the city manager and I and said, the cost of the contract is going to be $300,000 more. So we came back to you for a budget amendment, and that's how we paid for it.
And there's something I'm very confused because I remember the city council approved $600,000. I don't know why that $300,000 coming from, because if $900,000 is much more than the county charged, I don't think they can sell it to the council because they just way too much money for the city to pay. So I think that the issue I have is, I want to make sure we can balance the budget and we have the control, and the expenditure. And this is something so big that we have this $750,000 deficit, and we really have to find a way to control it so we can make sure the money is spent wisely. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Other councils have any questions? Go ahead. Councilman Tabatabai.
Yeah, and actually, Robin, you might be best to answer my question. So when we budget this, is the assumption then that the licensing revenue is going to match the cost of service, and so we would zero out? No, right?
No, it never has, but it's never been this wide of a gap.
Right. Okay, but So in full transparency, we would always pay, right? So it would never be the revenue matches the payout.
It's not a revenue generator for the city. I mean, we do get revenue. We've lost that revenue now for the most part. We're at about 75% of what we used to get.
Right.
But still, the cost of that contract was always more.
Okay.
And that's very typical.
Very typical, right?
For other cities.
Yeah, I'm a dog owner, and I don't pay the licensing fee every year because I didn't know. No one teaches you that when you save a dog, right? I went and got his rabies, and then they said, "Oh, you have to pay for the license," and I paid, and then I just got a notice on my door the other day, and then I attempted to pay. It was fairly complicated, and then I have to now scan the rabies shots and then try to send it online, and it's not an easy process. And so I think another question I have then, maybe this is to the county on the phone, is what kind of outreach or as was mentioned by a resident, does the county do to create some events so we can have more people actually licensing their dogs and bringing in that revenue that is needed to cover cost, but also so people can have a much easier experience to get the licensing and show the vaccination records and things like that. So does the county set up those kind of events in the city?
Hi, Councilman. Thank you. Frank Corvino again. Yes, thanks for the question. Obviously COVID has put a kink in just about all the operations that we do in terms of community outreach, but we are working on scaling up our community outreach in terms of vaccination clinics, as well as just specific needs for things like food and animal health, wellness type of outreaches. This would include licensing as well. And to answer the question about our canvassing, we did stop our canvassing in the field, and we have recently piloted a virtual canvassing program, which is a contactless canvassing program, which we are hoping will augment the loss in revenue and the loss of the canvassing due to the COVID-19 virus.
So I think one of the issues that I have is it just seems the incentive model is poor in that we'll pay for cost of service, and in order to lower that cost, we need to have people licensed. But the people who are in charge of the licensing, right, that's a cost for them to come out and canvass. And so where is their incentive to come out and canvass? So is there, in this, if we move to county or even within Inland Valley, do we have a guarantee to, more standard, more scheduled canvassing, again, some big events during the year for people to get licensing? Because again, for the city, the more that people register and pay their fees, right, that's going to reduce the cost, and that's something that we would want to see. So how can we make sure the incentives for the city are protected?
What I've experienced in other cities is that's written into your contract. So, we say every other year you're going to canvass, and the county agrees to that, and we have a written contract and there's never been an issue with it that I'm aware of. I mean, it's a contract management. Whoever's overseeing that contract, you need to make sure that those things happen. I've also, recently talked to the city manager and Paulina about once we do this transition, we need to do a media push and make sure that the residents know where to pay their animal licenses so that can start happening right away. Because if there are problems now coming back with the data the other way, we want to make sure people know where they can go to get their licenses and make sure their animals are licensed.
Can I ask one more clarifying question? Why is it an every other year model? We pay cost every year, yes? So shouldn't it also be an every year model for canvassing?
Perhaps Whitney could explain. She's on the phone. This is Dave Carmody, city manager. But the standard in the industry seems to be every year because there's also a cost associated with doing the canvassing. And so the return on canvassing seems to just work out. If you did it every year, your cost would remain the same, but the yield would be less. And I'm going to ask the county people to respond from their perspective.
You're absolutely correct. In the beginning, when we did canvassing, we would recommend a city to do canvassing the entire city. And then next year, we'll ask them to maybe canvass half of the city, so the return will be more. And the following year will be another half. But as Frank mentioned, right now, we put a hold on canvassing due to COVID.
So the city pays the cost for the canvassing?
That's correct.
Did anybody else have any questions?
I don't have a question, but I just have a comment. We tried in 2019, and we have deficits, $750,000, and we have a second year to continue to deficit, and the income is only $50,000. That's the lowest we ever have. Normally we have $300,000-$400,000. So I don't know if the first year we have some data issue. The second year, they should correct it. So meaning we should have some kind of at least $200,000 showing this improvement. But if 2 years, no improvement, I cannot guarantee. I don't think they can guarantee the third year that we don't have the 3/4 of a deficit or $800,000 deficit. The current situation is this: you have a flat fee, $900,000. That no matter what, we have to pay. No matter how they provide free service, this and that, but our resident didn't pitch in to pay, so we have this major deficit issue. In the county, we pay $18,000. So the flat fee, the bottom fee. So in that, right? Am I right? $18,000. I saw your chart. So in that way, at least we use what we have. People use at the same time. Later on, when the pandemic is over, we can have a canvassing. I have been canvassed by county, knock on my door, regularly. They want to check my dog. They want to show the rabies shot and the tag, and otherwise they won't go. So I will come down with a dog tag to showing that numerous times when I live in my current property for 18 years. So I remember that. So I'm going to move the motion to approve, and transfer to the county due to the major cost issue. At the same time, and the city manager to supersede, the contract, that we're going to have a contract and then move to county. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I'm going to second that motion, but I do have a question for the county reps online. Today on social media, that's apparently a good means of communicating with the council. We got tagged about basically a complaint about Inland Valley leaving bills on people's door and giving them 1 day to respond. Could you talk to us about your approach to collecting fees and hopefully a promise to not do the same thing, because it seemed to have stirred a lot of controversy?
Sure. So as Whitney said, we're not currently canvassing door to door, so we would not be leaving any notices on a door.
What about by mail?
What I failed to...
Sorry to interrupt, but what about by mail? I mean just in terms of outreach and fairness to our residents, even if you're not there in person.
So we have suspended collections through for COVID-19, and we are deferring many late payments and waiving some payments just to allow residents to become compliant with licensing. We will still collect, but it's a much softer approach, I can say. And I hope that answers that question.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable and based on what's going on with COVID. So you're flexible and a little softer. So that's cool. That seems better already than what was brought to our attention today. And after the pandemic, and once canvassing resumes, will that still be your approach of kind of a fair approach to our residents?
Yes, definitely. And if we have any specific changes, we would definitely inform the council and give them time to comment on any approach that may be different than that.
Okay, good. Thank you.
So we do have a motion and a second. Roll call. Oh, you have a question?
Yeah. So just for clarification, so when you do choose not to collect those fees, which is totally understandable because of COVID, those fees though go to the city to pay our cost. So it's actually the city that's waiving those fees, correct?
Correct. You're absolutely correct. And I'm referring right now because we are just doing collections and those fees for unincorporated county at this time. But when we transfer back to that type of licensing for cities, that would be the case. And the license fees are what augment and offset the cost for the city, the actual license fee.
So just to be clear then, when the decision is made not to collect those fees by the county, is this in cooperation with the city? Would the city councils or city manager be notified that we're going to stop collecting on fees because that obviously impacts our budget, that the county would make that decision?
Correct. That would be in cooperation with the city.
So the current cities like Baldwin Park were made aware that fees would not be collected, and this was then communicated to those council members. Is that correct?
So this would be, we are really looking at a case-by-case basis right now. Being aware that many folks are out of work, have been, their work has been put on hold because of COVID-19. It's really a case-by-case basis, and we are directly contacting the city when it comes to those types of waivers of fees.
Okay, so just to clarify, so those fees are waived once the city agrees that that's a decision they want to make for their residents. The county doesn't make that decision and then just notifies the city, hey, we're not going to collect the fees. I just want to be clear, when the county makes the decision not to collect fees, they're doing it with the permission of the city. Yes?
Yes, correct.
In addition, when we waive fee, we get some grants that the money will go back to the city as well. For instance, if a person who needs like a return to owner, we found the animal return to owner and they couldn't pay the fees. Actually, we have grants for that and also the license. So whatever we collect from their impoundment will go back to the city 100%. So any revenue we collect, for instance, license revenue or delinquency, it will go back to the city 100%.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Thank you, Mayor. We have a motion made by Councilman Wu, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Castellanos. Roll call, Mayor, Councilmember Tabatabai.
Aye.
Councilman Wu.
Aye.
Councilwoman Diaz.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Castellanos.
Aye.
Mayor Lopez Viado.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Okay, next is the Department of Regular Matters. Item 6, consideration of amendment number 1 to West Coast Arborist, contract for citywide tree maintenance services. Mr. Carmody, who will present the report.
Good evening, Mayor. On his way down to take the podium is Mike Cressup.
Members. Actually, West Coast Arborist is here, so they're going to be making a presentation. So if I could have Nick Alago and John Solis come down.
Come on up.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, council members. My name is Nick Alago. I am a regional manager and vice president of West Coast Arborist. And I had the pleasure of meeting with you last month. And at your request, we're back here to offer a presentation as far as to the request of staff for additional funding to maintain your urban forest. I'd like to start the presentation a little bit about us for some of you newer council members that may not be familiar with our company and the services we offer. First slide. Next slide. Okay, here we go. West Coast Arborist is a family-owned and operated company employing over 1,000 full-time employees, providing various tasks to achieve one goal, and that's serving communities who care about trees. We are proudly serving over 300 municipalities, public agencies, school districts, and colleges. We provide superior and safe operations 7 days a week, 24 hours per day throughout California and Arizona. Next. So for the city of West Covina, this is your project team. We have John Panetta as your area manager, Nicole Anjane as your customer service rep, Mario Gonzalez as your field supervisor, and Tim Carruthers as your plant health care manager. And below them is the management team that supports them. Next slide. Our staff qualifications include 6 board-certified master arborists, 85 certified arborists, 150 certified tree workers, 6 IT staff, 12 inventory data collectors, and 12 plant health care staff. Next. We are providing tree maintenance and management services for the following customers surrounding the city of West Covina, and they include City of Azusa, Baldwin Park, Covina, Diamond Bar, City of Duarte, El Monte, Glendora, Industry, Irwindale, La Puente, Temple City, City of Walnut, Whittier, and the County of Los Angeles. City staff, along with WCA, manages the city's urban forest through 2 platforms. One is Arbor Access, and number 2 is Arbor Access mobile app. With these tools, we have real-time tracking, GPS tree inventory, tree identification, job balance, and work history, very detailed work history records. Next. And here's just a little bit of information. A tree inventory is critical to the implementation of an effective tree care program. Now that you have that, you're set to go. A little bit of information here. Your estimated value of your urban forest is about a little over $105 million. So it's a valuable asset that you have here in the city. Next. These are the work history records, and these are the numbers from 2016 to current. So if you notice in District 1, we've trimmed 2,749 trees, removed 237, removed 24 stumps, and planted 14. And the numbers go down the line. And if you notice, in District 5, which is the district that we're scheduled to do this year, there's many more work records in the first 4, and we'll get to the next slide on that. Okay, the next slide illustrates the 7 different grids. We've, based upon your agreed upon 7-year grid cycle, we took the city and we divided it up into 7 grids, and this is the ones that they are. The ones that are in green are the ones that have been completed and in those years. The one that is scheduled for this year is grid number 5, and then so forth. In 2021 and 22, we'll do grid 6, and year 22, 23, we will do grid 7. Okay, on the next slide here, these are your maintenance district locations. These trees here are trimmed upon request of a service request or an as needed. These are not included in your 7-year grid cycle. So these are, again, as needed. Next slide. These are some of the photos of some samples of your MD trees that are up on the slopes and in your common areas and hillsides. Next slide. The suggested allocation for the increased tree maintenance budget, the staff wants to address citywide resident request outside of the current grid cycle, and I believe this was one of the questions that Madam Mayor asked last month. And one of the other is the high-risk trees and the parks. This next slide illustrates 218 high-risk trees, and the pinpoints are throughout the city of their locations. Next slide. Okay, this is your current tree maintenance contract cost. For grid pruning, they go for $66 per tree. Your hillside pruning is $144 per tree. Your tree and stump removals range between $280 and $1,800, depending on size. Your emergency call-out after hours for a 3-person crew is $387 an hour, and your emergency call-out regular hours is $327 per hour. Okay, here's a few photos of some before and after work. So here we have a sample of a pine tree, and I believe this was Councilmember Wu's question on what type of trimming we do, and I stated that each tree is a little bit different, and we do what is needed on the tree. So if you look at this, there was some thinning, some reduction on the ends, shaping, and this is a quite large tree. Next slide this is a deciduous tree, which means that the leaves fall off in the fall and there are no leaves. So as you can tell, the before and after, we did some thinning, took out some cross branching in the interior. There wasn't much shaping needed on this. It had good form. So that was the type of pruning we did on that one. Here we have one that's way out of shape and needing trimming and shaping. So you see the before and then you see the after. Some raising for clearance and shaping and thinning. That concludes our presentation. I'm open for questions.
Council, do you have any questions? Go ahead, Councilwoman Diaz.
Hi.
One of the issues I have is I'm wondering, when you trim trees or maintain trees, is it Southern Cal Edison type of trimming where they just chop to cut them down or to trim them from wires or being something hazardous? Or do you do maintenance to beautify, like let's say the trees, the olive trees that they have at the Santa Anita track, where they shape them?
Yes, and as I stated earlier, each tree needs a different type of pruning application. Some need shaping, some need thinning, some need raising. We don't ever top trees, which is an extreme reduction. You'll see a lot of utility line clearance companies do that because they're forced to, because they're under the lines, but we do not do that type of work.
Now, I don't know if I can ask. I just want to know, I'm concerned about the Azusa corridor, the island there. The olive trees that are there, they seem to haven't been trimmed in years. And I'm just wondering when that would be, and I guess that's something I can talk to the city manager.
I believe that's one of the projects that this additional funding is going towards. You are correct. I believe we've missed those maybe in 2 or 3 years. We haven't trimmed. And in the past, we used to do it regularly because the city had used to decorate those with holiday lights. So we would go over there, dress them up, and then the city. But I think that program has been long gone. So we haven't done that in a while.
Yes, exactly.
That's great.
That's my goal. That's all. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions? Councilman Wu?
I just want to clarify, because I think, including myself, since I already here longer, okay, and can you tell us the trees? Okay, we know you have a grid, okay, you have different grid, right? Mm-hmm. We have the maintenance district. So okay, where is your grid? Okay, that meaning where's your tree? I know sidewalk, okay, island, and parks. Our 16 parks, all the parks, the tree in the parks, that would belong to your company to trim, right? In the 7-year cycle. So okay, what's the tree? Okay, you don't touch. That is in our maintenance district. We have what? 6 districts or 7 districts? 7. We have a 7. Okay, and the maintenance district. Basically, each district we charge them on the property tax. So each district is a little bit different charge, depend on how heavy their vegetation is. So for that, we're charging differently in the entire city, have a 7 districts. So those trees, okay, how we trained it, who trained it, and compare with, West Coast, they're trimming all the grid, and how many trees we have from under their maintenance. Can you answer that question, please?
Under the maintenance districts?
Yes, your grid. How many trees we have, and do you who trimmed all those trees in the district? Is West Coast so they do it too? So we have to pay them extra, not in the 7-year cycle, right? Am I right?
Yeah, the maintenance the maintenance districts are outside of your the 7-year trim cycle, but we do work in there. On an as-needed basis or as requested by staff.
Because I understand we have a lot of area, a lot of resident complaint their common area is like a jungle, haven't been touched for 20 years. Am I right, Mike Chrisa? Okay, we have a resident on the south side, the green belt, okay, and in the back of their hill. Okay, you can see that tree haven't been touched for a long time. I remember you have a contractor, possible West Coast, went over there and cleaned up a lot of places, but I think we still have a lot of places untouched. Yeah, go ahead.
Councilman, we do have a lot of trees in those areas. Just for your knowledge, we have about 33,000 trees in the city. 26,000 are part of the grid cycle. So we have a whole, we have 9,000 that are not part of the trim cycle. A lot of it is MD2. MD4, which is that Azusa corridor you're talking about, and then Shadow Oak area. We did about $165,000 at Shadow Oak to clear the views of the top end and the big trees, and those trees hadn't been touched in about 20 years. To do a trim cycle in MD4, which is just the Shadow Oak area, it would be approximately $165,000 a year to do a 5-year trim cycle and do that. That is not something that's been done there. We have, our budget is limited.
Mike, okay, I understand, okay, but my point is this: since 7 district and they pay extra taxes, okay, and hold it in the district reserve, okay, and that money should be used wisely to keep, maintenance the district, including the tree. And since the tree overgrown, that become a fire hazard. So each district, okay, should be, okay, in control about when to trim those trees or trim those jungle to make sure don't create problem. Right now, it's like wildfires all the places, so we want to make sure those places should be, since we already have, each district, we already have a budget. So how can we don't touch them for 20 years? What stopped them to be really in control rather than people complain to us? I think we should automatically doing what homeowner association doing. When we collect fee, it's just like homeowner association, and then we're using those fee to keep the property around the neighborhood with open space. Okay, that tree should be managed. Okay, and the maintenance. Am I right?
You are 100% correct. You are. I don't control the fees that come in, and we are allotted a budget, and we stay within that budget we're allotted. So, Dave, I don't know if you can help, if you can help me on this, but ultimately, we want to do the hillsides. And I want to make clear that there's two different issues, because you have the bushes and you have the trees. So West Coast Arborist is responsible for the trees, but the hillside maintenance is to the contractor that is responsible for that. So there's two separate issues, and there's a scope of work.
I know the concern is here is that rather than people complain to us and then we react to you, cities should have a systematic, control each of area using their fee, that account for their district, that we collect their money into our trust account, into that, should spend those money to make sure their area be cleaned up regularly, no matter 5-year cycle, 7-year cycle, didn't get touched for 20 years. And that's my point, that I think it's a management issue, how we manage, each district and how we survey the tree, and we see need to be clean. We just clean it. We just don't waiting for people complain to us. That's my point, because if people don't complain, then we have overgrown tree, and they continue to overgrow, and they create major catastrophe of fire hazard.
I understand the concerns, and we take it very seriously.
Yeah, so let me finalize my question. So basically, we have agreed from your 7-year cycle, there will be the corridor, the sidewalk, and the common area, and then you will, by request, and doing the seven district maintenance district to take care of those trees. Am I right? And then my last question would be, we're going to spend this $300,000 to do those trees. Where this $300,000, you identify which area the tree will be trimmed and how, because we don't want to trim a little bit, then it will grow again. I trim my tree to buzz cut, so make sure it will take a long time for them to grow back, so I can save the money. But they grow so fast, so I have to trim almost yearly rather than, like you say, the 7 years. 7 years is like really a long time.
The harder you trim them, the faster they're going to grow.
Really?
Yes. That's. Yeah.
So I trim too much.
So if you go in there and you go at them hard, if you go at them properly by ISA standards, it limits the rate of growth. If you
should tell me earlier. I just trim my tree. I just trim a lot of my tree.
And let me educate you guys a little bit.
Thank you so much.
New growth from those hard cuts is going to be weakly attached and can become hazardous. So you really don't want to cut them hard like that. That's why some of the topping trees that Council Member Diaz is talking about, where utility companies come in and they top them, they have to do them every single year because you see how fast they grow up.
Grow fast.
Yes. So that's not necessarily true. The harder you trim them, the more you're going to get out of it. So.
I hope my hair like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Go ahead.
That's interesting. How many trees total are there per grid? I just wanted to know if they were equally divided.
There's the tree count for each grid is there. So in grid number 1 is 2,400 trees. Grid number 2 is 37. District 3 is 1,400.
Wait, the grids, are you saying the grids that you showed us on the map, are there per district?
Yes, I'm sorry. Districts, grids, they're in the same thing.
Okay. Well, my thing is, if you have, I know we have that map, but I wrote it down.
There you go.
So the 1 year you do District 5, that's 5,642 trees, and then in another year you do District 6, which is only 1,068. That's a lot of trees that we're not, I feel like we're just wasting our money. I mean, we're not utilizing it.
No, you're on a per tree count. So, like, I think I attempted to explain this last month. So, when the city created their 7-year grid cycle, we gave them a budget of what it was going to take to achieve that. So, you take the amount of trees, times it by the tree cost, which is 66, and then you divide it by 7, and that's the annual budget. Now, some years we're going to come up short, but some years we're going to have an abundance of money. But by the end of the 7 years, you will have had everything completed. So, for example, some of the grids that have more trees, for example, District 5 has 5,000 trees. So for this year, we may only get 3,000 of them. But if you look next year, you only have 1,000. We will make that up the following year with the budget. So that's how it kind of goes. Okay. It's very difficult to dissect a city and keep the boundaries similar with the exact amount of trees. So.
And with this budget, would it include all the emergency trees? As I mentioned previously, we've had a lot of residents complain about the trees. I don't want to do another amendment budget or be told we don't have the budget for those trees, even though the cycle already has been completed.
I believe, and Mike can correct me if I'm wrong, is some of this money is going to be allocated to those high-risk trees, those dangerous trees, the ones that were illustrated by the red dots all over the city. Am I correct, Mike, in saying that?
That is correct. That's correct. We try to prioritize. The 218 trees that they identified, we'll go from what's the highest risk, the most liability to the city, and work our way down. As far as residents' requests, we'll take care of the ones there first. And, we do our best to get to all the trees. You're asking me a hard question. We go until we don't have money. Like, you call us, we respond. And when we start running low, we'll go to the city manager and report that. So
I just want to make sure that you allocate a certain amount. I mean, you've already known how many emergency trees from residents that have been calling per year. So to average that out and make sure you allocate that so that we don't have to hear we don't have a budget for that, just to keep that aside. I just want to make sure that is that's going to be taken care of.
I understand.
Councilman Castellanos? Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, I'll help you with the question. So I guess to help answer that question, what portion of this $300K is allocated for incidentals or things we're not prepared for? Do you know off the top of your head?
John gave us numbers today. To give you an example, the 218 trees is $265,000. Am I correct on that?
Okay, so that kind of answers it. Is just whatever let's say the whole thing was allocated to that is just, as you've mentioned multiple times, one tree minus whatever that cost is. Tree 2 minus that cost. 3. So, we get to zero, But to kind of further drill down on that point, the tree that you showed, the deciduous tree that you showed the before and after, what is the cost, for example, to do that one? Could we put that one back up, please?
Okay, so...
Okay, or the pine tree, that one's cool too. There we go.
Okay, so there is no difference in size when it comes to grid trimming. So that large tree we did for $66, and this tree we did for $66. So we take an average, so obviously we're not going to do as...
Some are not.
Yeah.
So 66 no matter what pine
yes, $66 is what it takes to do a grid trimming in your grids for all trees.
300K minus 66 times X down to 0. Basically, oversimplifying.
Well, it depends on what you're using it for.
Right. If we do something else, then it's not 66.
You might need some city hall stuff that you want a little bit different type of pruning on it. But in general, if you're going to request a grid trim for everything and include all of that, it's $66.
And just overall, because as I mentioned at the last meeting, this seems to be the never-ending problem that hasn't been fixed in, I don't know, probably decades, maybe since I was a little kid, maybe even before then. But also, my crystal ball tells me we're not going to get ahead of it. What can we do? Is there any kind of, I know Mike tells us that from time to time you guys do try to find ways to help us, but what else can be done, I guess, if you were in our shoes, just to, I guess what I'm trying to say is I don't want the perpetual, message sent out from City Hall is just we could never catch up.
Okay.
It can be done.
From my view, the city of West Covina is on a good track right now. That's why last month I said, stay the course. Let's finish the 7 years, and then we'll reassess there. Where you have your challenges, and goes to Councilmember Wu's concern, is the maintenance districts. I don't think they're properly funded through their tax revenue, so to speak. So we're kind of being reactive. And you're not alone in this challenge. City of Chino Hill, City of Walnut, they have similar situations. And how they've chosen to address it is they prioritize the trees that are within, say, 100 or 150 feet of the property line, and they work on them. And those are their higher priorities. So they use up the budget there, and they leave the ones that are like in the center of the slopes. Like if they fall or break a limb, it's not going to really cause an issue. But that being said, unless you fully fund this for a 5 or 7 year a grid cycle, as Mike commented on, we did a cost analysis to do that, and just in Maintenance District 4, it was going to be $165,000 a year to maintain that on a 5-year cycle. So, I mean, but I don't know if you can generate that revenue through additional taxes, which is very difficult, I believe. I could be wrong, but I don't know. You guys can answer that better than I can. So that is a challenge, and you guys aren't alone with that. Other cities face the same challenges, and that's how they've addressed it. And then they kind of circle back after a couple of years, and then they try to reassess it. If the things close to the property line are still okay, then that following year they allocate the money to the other trees that they skipped prior. So it's a challenge. It's a juggle.
Councilwoman Diaz.
I want to understand. So, trimming those trees on Azusa Avenue, is that an extra cost for us at this point? I thought I want to clarify with Mike.
Part of that 300.
No, I'm not sure which specific trees you're talking about.
I'm talking about all the olive trees down.
The center medians, no. The center median, that's part of the citywide. That's here. But for example, when you get down past BLD, on the hillside, there's some trees that are down that we want to address and do things like that. But that would actually be MD2, not part of citywide. So is that clear? No.
You're just talking about the olive trees in the center median on Azusa. Yes. The ones that used to have the planters around, and they've since been yes, those would be the regular price.
Covered.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful.
Councilman Tabatzbai?
So at the previous meeting, we did speak about possibly giving resident access to be able to see the trim cycle. I think one of the issues that we have is residents are unaware of when the trees are set to be maintained. And I think one thing that could help us as council is if residents knew in 18 months this tree is set to be trimmed, and therefore they see, it's going to happen, or they see their grid was done this year, and then they actually notice, oh wow, right, our trees look really good, because it's something out of mind, right, until it looks bad, and it's a urgent concern when you have no clue when it's going to happen. So the question is, are we going to be able to get access to the grid cycle to make available to residents through an online system?
Yes, we have programs like that set up with other cities where we attach the program to their city website. So they're able to go to the city website and then pull up their district or their address, and then it would have the scheduled pruning time for their address. There's an additional cost to that because that's got to be built. I think it's minimal. I don't think it's that much. So I will get back to you with a price for that. They have to build a whole program custom to your city to be able to do that. but I believe our IT department now has kind of a template to use, and we can keep the cost down for you. But I want to add, though, this can be a good thing for your residents, but it could also be, a headache for you guys. If we don't stick to the program and we vary from that, and they see on the website that, hey, it's supposed to be trimmed, and it doesn't, you guys are going to get a whole lot of calls. I've had cities that's happened in, and it turned out to be a nightmare for them, and they were complaining at council meetings saying, hey, I was told it was going to be here, but for whatever reasons, maybe budget cuts or whatever, cities decided to cut the budget on the tree program, and they weren't able to fulfill their trim cycle. Then council's got to explain to them why their tree isn't getting trimmed. So it's a good program if we stick to it, and I can even we can even schedule certain months out of the year that you want this done. For example, the city of Glendora has this program, and they live by it religiously, and we trim their grid, one grid per year, as you guys, and they trim it between March and June, and they get that grid done between March and June. So they can go to their city website, and they can see, okay, this tree's there. They can go to their address. Oh, I'm not scheduled till next year or the following year. We can even go as far as individual sites having the work history, like when was the last time that tree was trimmed, because obviously we have meticulous work records of when the trees were done, and that can be done also.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't doubt that we are not afraid of accountability, and and if residents also, it holds them accountable because everything comes at a cost. And so if residents also understand that your trees were to be trimmed this year, the budget is showing we have to make tough decisions. Residents, what would you like to do, right? At least this way the residents can understand the decision, as opposed to, they just think we don't trim the trees, right? They think we're not doing that work when we are. So I think that does sound like a great program. I had one other question. Council member Castellanos was talking about type of trees, right? And so, as with our planning, city planning, as we move forward with other projects, does your company make recommendations to the city as to what types of trees, given our 7-year cycle, would be best for any new type of development that we do, to make sure that we're choosing the right landscaping to fit what we're planning for the city, so that way we can maintain and keep it looking the way we want it?
Absolutely. We have, again, 6 board-certified master arborists. We've put in city master plans together for cities. Obviously, we would make recommendations. We would present it to council. Council would approve those, and then we could insert it into each site. So when staff pulls up that site, they can say, okay, what's recommended for this site? And then they can just choose that. And then that can last for many, many years. Even if council changes over with new members, it's a plan that's set, for the future. And they're called master street tree plans. We have those available for you, too.
Go ahead, Councilman Wu.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Okay, my question are kind of confused over here, so maybe you can kind of educate me regarding citywide tree. So where is the citywide tree? Grid. Okay, grid. What do you mean grid? Okay, so what district is grid? District maintenance. So what I heard right now is just 3 different and vocabulary. So what is a tree inside the city belong to citywide? What kind of tree belong to the way you're talking about grid? Okay, and what tree? I know the 7 district of maintenance that we've been approved the budget for numerous time. So maybe you can kind of give us a definition about, like, example, what kind of tree citywide first.
Okay, citywide is just a term for any trees in the city. The grid trees are a term that's used for your grid cycle, which typically are street trees out there in front of the sidewalk. They don't usually include slopes or MD areas or paseos or anything like that. So those would be done separately. They're rather difficult. Like again, cities have challenges because of the funding.
You talking about citywide right now? You talking about citywide? Which tree are you talking about here? Because you kind of jumping here, there. So when you say you have difficulty, okay, first you say citywide is about the sidewalk, about the island, okay, about the city street tree, right? Mm-hmm. So then what is the difficulty of the slope that will be belong to what category? Belong to district maintenance or what?
Okay, so let me try to clarify that. So when we say citywide, you have, like you said, probably three different types. You have your hillside, citywide, so you have hillsides or MD districts.
When you say hillside, because the hillside, some of the hillside belong to district, maintenance district, district 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that's a hillside.
No, those are in your LMDs, and that was one of the slides that I illustrated that's separate from the grids.
Or are you talking about the park, on the slope of the park? Okay, because park tree belong to you to trim on your so-called grid cycle.
Yeah, parks that are within a grid, those get trimmed within the grid cycle. The ones that don't are your MD, your maintenance districts. Those are outside of the grid. And those are the ones that are on the hillsides or the...
Can you make an example where the hillside, maybe Mike can show me or show us what is the example for the hillside but belong to the citywide?
Yeah, can you pull up the slide for the MD districts? These are the MD districts. All of the green, those are all your grids. See the yellow, the red, the blue? Those are your MDs. And these are all hillsides. And the prior photo illustrates the type of trees that are on these hillsides.
The hillside doesn't belong to the maintenance district.
Right, yes,
okay.
Yes.
So it's separate. It's
yes.
Just still belong to city. Okay, it's a city property. Okay, and on the hillside, but doesn't belong to the resident district.
Exactly, they're not included in the grid program for the street trees.
Got it.
There you go.
Got it. So we have quite a lot of those hillside.
Yeah, and I'm not aware of what the actual budgets are for your MDs. Over the past years, they've fluctuated, and I don't know how the city allocates the money. So much of it for landscaping, so much of it for trees. But you only get one pool of money, I believe.
So you only do tree. You don't do any.
No, we don't do landscaping. Just
tree.
Specific to yes.
Tree, small tree. So we have to choose all the difficult tree for him. Not going to be easy tree. All the same charge. And can we identify? Can you let residents know we're going to spend this $300,000? Will those trees so they can say their money is well spent? You can see all those trees have been cleaned, have been trimmed. So will you show to the, on your side or city side, where's location, all those will be, money will be spent to make sure those trees will be trimmed?
Mike?
So you can identify to us so we can see where the money goes. So taxpayer can see where these $300,000, the $67, possible 3,000-4,000 trees that have been trimmed in this area, this area, this area, this area, including maybe this hill, all this tree need to be, and including that tree on there for like so many years.
Oh, absolutely. I can track where this $300,000 is going.
Okay.
Very easily. So then at the end of the $300,000, I can bring you a report and say, here's where the money was spent.
But can you show us first before you trim the tree so we know this tree has been, before you trim and after you trim, what they look like? Sure. Can you identify to the council and to the public so at least we know which area, this money will be spent?
Councilman Wu, would it be okay if we do some before and afters when we start the work and we bring it to the city manager's report?
Yes, can you give us a report?
And then Councilmember Tabatabai, we looked at Glendora's page because as Nick talked about, Glendora has their grids posted. And what we'll try to do right away is we'll take the slide here that you saw with the grids and we'll post it on the website so people can go and see, we have the dates, this is when we're coming. So we'll get that up right away. Glendora, it's just a one-page quick link. As far as the GIS, knowing when your tree was trimmed and things like that, that's things we're still going to have to work on. Iron out kinks. Nick brought up some good points as well of things we need to consider. But in the meantime, to show them when their grid's coming, we'll get that on the website as soon as possible. We'll get you updated on that. And then once we start work, we'll do before and afters. and we'll just put them in the weekly. We'll just put them in the city manager's report every couple weeks.
How long ago you have trimmed the Gloucester Park? All those trees have been trimmed by you?
Can I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Gloucester Park is a different beast. Gloucester Park is a wilderness park, and part of the agreement from the master plan of the park was when that was deeded to the city that it would be treated as a wilderness preserve. So if a tree is not impeding the trail, it does not get trimmed there. That being said, because of the fire, we do have some things. Yeah, we've got some stuff that we have to go there and change. That's something that was just part of, like I said, that is dates pre us. It's what the Gulsters wanted when they donated the land to the city.
How about the West Coast? Do you have any number about how many trees in that park? Because that park is really overgrown and it's a disaster making right now.
Yes, we inventoried Gloucester Park. I'm not sure how far into the wilderness, as Mike stated, that we were told to go, which is trees that they wanted in the inventory and trees that they didn't. But yes, it is inventoried.
So you surveyed all those trees in the Gloucester Park already? So you know which tree possible have a kind of endangered, potentially hazardous?
Yes, and just to confirm, John, Gloucester Park's in there? Okay, look at it real quick. I'm pretty sure we did because we've done some trimming there in the past, just in the inner perimeters of the park, not down into the wilderness so much as Mike stated, but up in the park there because you have events there, and past staff has said that they wanted the trees safe. They've held Arbor Days there in the past, so we have done work in there.
Got it. Okay, thank you so much.
Can you quickly pull up the grid? I'd like to see the map again. Okay, out of that grid cycle, which have you completed, or is it?
The ones that are colored in green, those are the 4 districts that we've completed. That's 1, 2, 3, and 4. The purple is the one that's scheduled for this year. That's District 5.
Okay, perfect, and it has the year.
Okay.
That's a perfect map. Thank you.
Can we post this? I'm sorry. Okay, can we post this on this website? So I want to follow Councilman Tabai talking about let people know, okay, where those trees and the bigger trees is a good thing, but at the same time it's a liability. So we need to make sure, especially a lot of tree in the public area on the sidewalk, but it doesn't have a sidewalk, and we have the tree grow so huge and they kind of till it. So a lot of people worry about the tree will collapse to their home. So we need to survey those trees, kind of leaning tower. How can we address to the potential issue for people's belonging, their poverty and the safety? So I saw quite a lot when I was walking. So I want to make sure, okay, what you're talking about inventory, and you survey all the tree, what kind of tree, and we can post, okay, on our city website about how we trim the tree and what kind of timing and the 7-year cycle. We need to stick with our principle because this is liability. We need to keep the maintenance. That's you keep your home. You want to make sure you fix everything so you won't collapse. But thank you so much. So you can do that, right? You can provide the information to the city so the city can kind of put a link and about West Covina so we can see all the map.
Yes.
Can we do that? Okay. Thank you.
Council has any other questions? Anybody like to motion?
I move the motion to approve, please.
Any second?
I'll second.
Roll call.
For item number 6, we have a motion by Councilman Wu and a second by Councilwoman Diaz. Roll call, Councilmember Tabatabai.
Aye.
Councilman Wu.
Aye.
Councilwoman Diaz.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Castellanos.
Aye.
Mayor Lopez Viado.
Aye, passes 5-0. Okay, now we are at Mayor Council Members Report. Any AB 1234 conference and meeting report from Council? Councilman Tabatabai?
Yes, I just completed the League of California Cities new mayor and council member conference. Was quite exciting on Zoom. Yeah. Oh, I've met a lot of wonderful images and had some coffee. And my son got to participate. So my 7-year-old jumped in on some of those conversations. I got to learn about city financing and a lot of exciting stuff and internet, social media use. That was a big topic. Yeah, so fantastic.
And I want to add on, okay, I'm sorry the pandemic, but 5 years ago when I got elected, we went to Sacramento, okay, and we met so many people and all the city elect and the training and all the classes, and I think it's made an impact. So I'm sorry you cannot, okay, go to Sacramento. Hopefully it will bring back, okay, and have a chance to really go to see the Sacramento with all the peer, different city, and that is quite, it was a quite experience, okay. I really enjoy it, okay. I think that time I went with Lois Johnson, also have a wonderful experience with all the peer and all the newly elected mayor. So, okay, sorry about you don't have that chance, but I think you can learn a lot of stuff. Thank you.
City council request. Is there any request? Go ahead. Councilman Tabatabai.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Again, there was a lot of the public comments regarding the hate crime in my district, and also the issues in District 3 that several members of the public have spoken out over the last few months. And so I'd like to make a motion to call an emergency meeting of the Community and Senior Services Commission for February the 10th.
Is that a? Oh yeah, it's a Mother May. Okay, Councilman Wu. Go ahead.
You want to say the Mother May I, but you need somebody second you. But okay.
Madam Mayor, he needs a second on that.
Yeah, he needs a second. But before anybody second, I want to say something.
Discussion prior.
Discussion. Okay.
You don't need a second. It could die for lack of a second, or you need a second.
Yeah, but I want to say something. Okay, I want to say something. Okay, I understand where those young people coming from, because I was immigrant. Okay, I look different. I talk different. Okay, and I came to this country. Okay, back in 1983, and become a proud U.S. citizen. Okay, and. Starting with 2 suitcases of junk, okay, and then become who I am today. I'm very proud, okay, to fulfill my American dream, okay. But at the same time, okay, at a late age, I have a disability. I want to give back. That's why I'm sitting over here and try to contribute and to this magnificent community and country gave me the opportunity. So I want to say this, okay, the discrimination, the bias, it all exists. Okay, I went to Chicago back in 1984, my master's degree, okay, and I'm facing a very in public discrimination. Okay, I understand, okay, what this, but never discourage me about who I am. Okay, what I'm saying is this, people don't define who you are, you define who you are. Okay, as we 5 persons sit over here, we are 5 minorities sitting over here. We have no right to calling, okay, people discriminate us. If people discriminate us, we have no chance to be elected. Okay, I can guarantee my vote is come from all diverse of a resident. And I know where you're coming from. You want to set up some kind of a commission, okay, and have some kind of a race equality, this and that. But the race equality is come from education. It's come from the family. It's not by community doing the talking, and nothing can be resolved. And the result is, if you see the West Covina, the diverse city, our city is 52% Latino and 35% okay, Asian, okay, and 8% okay, Caucasian, and then 4.5% okay, Black or African American. So we are very diverse, all different of nationalities sit over here. I love my neighbor. I basically love all the people. That's why we're sitting over here. We don't want to be kind of create something like our city is a racist city. Okay, speaking true, if you're talking about Caucasian, they are the minority right now. We need to protect their right because they are minority. Okay, and the same thing too. The majority of Latino American, they are the majority right now. They need to become like a more passion and compassion about other nationality. So I'm thinking about, I don't think we should redundant set up something that our city, as a pure example of 5 of us, including myself, kind of fresh out of boat, and people still give me the opportunity, okay, and to contribute and to lead, okay, and have me to be sitting over here and decide their future. I'm very, very proud of to sit over here, and I'm so proud that the people who vote for me is all come from different backgrounds. Otherwise, I have no chance to sit over here, and I get elected 2 times. One is at large, one is district 2018. So what I'm saying is this, I strongly believe our city is totally love and helping each other. You see the mask donation from the Asian American. We see the money coming from, okay, and the different nationality, including the, okay, restaurant business from Hispanic American, okay, helping our senior meal program. We see all this pandemic, we see all different people step up to help. We want to spread the love, but we don't need to have a commission talking about, okay, somebody has been, okay, buyer discriminate. Who doesn't get discriminated when they're growing up? Who never, okay, have been bullied by people, okay, when they facing their job and this and that. Okay, so what I'm saying is this, there's really no point to set a redundant commission. We already clearly, okay, 5% sit over here, very diverse. So in that way, I'm sorry, I cannot support your, okay, this, okay, so-called, okay, and discrimination, because if this city, like you say, with all this hate's always around. People of some weird people, okay, they're doing weird stuff, okay? We're talking about some audience, okay, people come from other places, come over here and saying a lot of derogatory stuff. Is that racist? Okay, I'm thinking that basically is nothing but, okay, try to get attention. So I'm sorry, I cannot support your agenda.
So for in this case, is it just a motion and then to see if anybody seconds?
Yeah,
or there's no discussion or anything, no need for discussion?
That's correct. It died for a lack of a second. You're having council comments. You could, Council Member Tabatabai can ask for it to be a Mother May at the next meeting to make it more official. He's okay. Already made the motion and no one seconded. So
Councilman Tabatabai made a motion. Do I have a second?
No, I'm not prepared to make a second, but I will make a comment. I was a little bit shocked at some of the, I guess, accusations and comments because, so I wrote some down. City Council's failure to properly address these. As far as and to kind of follow along what Tony said, I mean, yeah, racism is real. Racism is true. It occurs. I don't think it's as prolific as it was made out to be today, and I also don't think that it's been like blatantly in our face and we've just been ignoring it. Because, I mean, I knew of the one paint incident, and I think we got right on it. And I think that if we want to have an honest conversation about how to fix it, blindsiding us with an attempt to make us look bad as if like we're asleep at the wheel and deliberately ignored it, I don't think is the way, especially by, saying, demanding that we investigate. Well, yeah, whoever's doing bad stuff, for sure we should know who they are and they should be held accountable. Hopefully we could catch them. But I would like to learn more. I mean, to some extent, I kind of look at it like having a commission may add fuel to the fire. As we've seen recently in our country, sometimes just the topic of division and sides kind of escalates. So, and I mean, as far as a proclamation, I don't think it really does anything. I mean, do I reject racism? Absolutely. Do I denounce racism? Absolutely. I've witnessed it my whole life, and it's sad to witness. But yeah, I'm not prepared to move forward because I definitely would want to wrap my head around things a little bit more and also be given a chance to, I think, get a handle, get a grip on, is there stuff going on that I'm unaware about? And also, I'm pretty confident that our PD is doing their job and has done a good job of when they have calls for service about stuff like this, if they have leads, I know they're going to be there. So I'll hold off right now.
I have to make a comment. I know just because of everything that's being discussed. Obviously, you see my standpoint. I mean, I've mentioned it in councils. Obviously, the city standpoint and the city council in regards to all the hate and so forth. I can't stop freedom of speech on certain things, but I don't see it as an ongoing issue in the city currently. West Covina doesn't seem to tolerate for all of us to be sitting here and to be here at the moment and having the minority be the majority in our city. I think it's a great thing. If it is an issue an ongoing, consistent issue where we're neglecting it all, then yes, that is a big concern. I know that it was a one-time incident which we did not tolerate, which the city was on top of it ASAP, and they took care of it, including our PD. And I think with this, it might create division. But if I don't see a second, then the motion dies. Oh, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for allowing me to comment. First of all, I completely understand the perspective from the council, and I understand that the city's response to the graffiti. What I believe what the residents were sharing and what we've shared with each other and just myself having spoken as a resident to this council is that there hasn't been a space to have that conversation or share those traumas that do occur in our city. And again, when the resident a few months ago came out and spoke about the incident happening at the condominiums, and then followed up, another resident came and spoke, and we also had the graffiti incident. But there are many incidents that occur that don't get acknowledged, and the idea of the Community Service and Senior Services Commission is that is the space for that conversation to happen. And January, the meeting was canceled. There was again an incident in the neighboring city of El Monte that was, it turned violent. And there's been several incidents within our city, and again, as all of you said, the racism and discrimination and those issues, they happen and they do occur in the city. And even ourselves, we have felt an inability to have a conversation. We had a member of the community come up with a swastika mask who had previously used the N-word. And there isn't a space available for that conversation to occur. Now, we do have a commission, the Community and Senior Services Commission, that is part of what they do, right? Human rights is in their mission for that conversation to happen. And so the motion that I had asked was to get ahead, and they're going to meet in May or March. March is when they're next set to meet, and at that March meeting, I'm sure on the agenda this will be placed. And so my motion was to get ahead, considering the several incidents that have occurred. Also, there's the incident with the gang violence that has occurred, where that would also be a space in the Community and Senior Services Commission, where there would also be a space for those families and others who are being impacted to also come and speak and have that discussion, where we haven't been able to have that for the public. And so that's That's what.
So if I still see no second, you're more than welcome to let your commissioner know in the Community Senior Service, and they can discuss it among themselves in their commission. Do I have any other?
I think we need to address to the poor mom, okay, that lost a precious daughter, okay, at Azusa Ama. We need to have our police to kind of give us the status report regarding what is the status. We owe her some kind of follow-up, and we need to continue to. So I request, okay, and our police department with people in charge that continuously, okay, update to the grieving mom regarding, okay, and we need to bring the justice, okay. We need to make sure the person commit this heinous crime will be put in justice. I think this is something very important for our police. So police chief, you want to come to address the issue, please?
Thank you, Chief.
Absolutely, and thank you. Obviously, this is a heinous crime, and our hearts certainly go out to the family. It's hard to follow when you see a mother grieving, a husband grieving, but we have been in constant contact with the family. It has not gone unnoticed. We have been tirelessly investigating this crime. There are some leads out there and some things that we have that I cannot share. It's inappropriate to share because our ultimate goal is to bring those responsible to justice, and that's exactly what we plan on doing. I didn't get a chance to respond to the camera situation, but I'll do it now if you don't mind. The cameras that are on top of those poles that are at that intersection are not actually cameras that capture video. They're sensors for the light. We are looking at a camera system. There's a cost to it, and we'll be exploring that. But this isn't our first rodeo here. Our guys are very good at what they do, and give us some time, and we're going to get this solved. So I just want you to know, although they're speaking out from grief, I understand it. I sympathize with them, but we are doing everything we can as a police department, and we will continue to do that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chief.
We have a question. Councilwoman Diaz has a question.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Chief, I want to know what the protocol is. I'm talking about the young man that came and talked about the homeless person that was living in his car. And I'm just wondering, what's the protocol? What can he do to have this guy removed? What could he do?
Well, thank you for that. I don't know if many people know this. We have a very robust homeless team that go out every day. We actually send a report to council. I'm sure you've seen some of them with the activity that we do. We certainly cannot get to every single thing every single second. In that case where this person has someone living, I mean, obviously the first thing to do is to call us, but I want to encourage every person that's listening. You have a service area lieutenant that's being underutilized. It is their job to solve these types of problems. That is the first call you make. You call your service area lieutenant. You can find that online. You find out who he is. You contact him. You tell him what the issue is. And that way you get that special attention from your service area lieutenant. If that fails, if the information gets to me, I will certainly make sure it gets to our service area lieutenant. Now, I will tell you that under certain laws, we can remove people. Sometimes it's a time limit. So, for instance, if he's in a car, if he's just camped out there, we can mark the car. And, of course, 72 hours later, if he hasn't moved it, we can. But they know how to play the cat and mouse game and that sort of thing. If there are other issues that we can remove him for, we can. But we are bound by the law, and we cannot break that law. So I would encourage him to reach out to the police department, service area lieutenants, and let us help him that way.
Councilman Wu had another question.
Quickly, okay, just follow up. Do we have the gentleman's contact information? You got it, right? Can you have our chief, would you please have somebody to contact the person?
Absolutely.
See what is the problem so we can help him. Look like he lives in some kind of, distress, okay? And so we want to make sure we can, as a city, we want to help our neighbor, okay, to see the problem, see if we can resolve the issue.
I agree. I will. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other requests? I actually have a request. I know Congress passed $1.9 trillion, and I believe there'll be a $350 billion for state and local relief. I'd like to make sure our city is on top of that, and if we can send out a letter so we can get our fair share, especially with this whole COVID and everything, just for the relief. Do I have consensus?
Yeah, I'll go pick it up.
Okay. Thank you. 5-0, okay. Is there any other request, comments, council comments? Nothing else? So I guess this concludes our meeting, and meeting is adjourned before midnight tonight.